Welcome back. to the Kaspa Silver YouTube channel. How's everyone doing? How is everyone doing? This is going to be a really fun live stream. But before I start, I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. So just please let me know down below in the chat if you can hear me. Also be sure to share the live stream out to other people that you know would be interested. But today we're going to be reviewing some Bitcoiners videos. So the first video we're going to review is Kaspa the next Bitcoin? That's the one we're going to review first. We're going to start there. It was made by Bitcoin, not crypto. And so we're going to be starting there. This is the video we're going to start with today. And then of course we're going to go to the very famous video that happened today by Bitcoin University, where he called me out and called everyone out. Everyone that's in Kaspa is an idiot. That's his argument. That's mainly his argument. That if you're in Kaspa, you're an idiot. So yeah, we're gonna be reviewing this one first to start. Then we'll get to Bitcoin University, and then we'll go on from there. Let me first make sure that the audio is good for this video. We're gonna speed this up because I don't want to for it to be that slow. Playback speed, let's try 1.5. He's not a slow speaker, so hopefully I can still understand him. But let me see the comments. Kaspa the next Kaspa is the real Bitcoin. Yeah, so first off, just to kind of, we'll just start off with like the very first point. Let me see. Kaspa the next. Let me just put Kaspa. It should pop up. So yeah. The video title is called "The Many Problems with Kaspa," but his thumbnail is "Kaspa is not the next Bitcoin." And to start, I'm just going to start here that thumbnail is the truest thing to ever say. I honestly am very against kind of saying Kaspa is the next Bitcoin, because if it's the next Bitcoin, it's going to fail. I don't think people really realize that if Kaspa is the next Bitcoin, it will fail. And that's because no one really uses Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not really actually tapping into being an alternative digital cash system for the world. Currently, right now, its use case is store of value and number go up technology. And that's pretty much like the main point of it. I mean, the market is still wide open for some proof of work network to actually tap into payments and being used every single day. And Kaspa not only lets you tap into payments, but it lets you do other things as well. So it's not limited. It's very versatile. But I don't like to say that Kaspa is the next Bitcoin. I think that's a horrible thing to kind of preach to people, that, oh yeah, it's just the next Bitcoin. That's making Kaspa appear so simplistic, because I think it's much greater than that, and it can be much greater for humanity. So we're going to go ahead and review this video here and see what he says. I've watched this like a little bit ago. I don't think I watched the whole entire thing through, but we'll see what he says here.
There are a lot of major problems with Kaspa, in my opinion, that go overlooked by the people within that cryptocurrency community, especially the ones that are self-proclaimed Bitcoiners as well. And I'm going to explain what it is that I believe that they're missing. And I'll go into a few of the other things as well, and hopefully just give you a broader image of why Kaspa has completely underperformed and why I believe it will continue to do so. There is, of course, a period of it overperforming from its inception. It has done very well, but in the recent few months, it has done very poorly, even in a bull market with Bitcoin. So it is uncorrelated from Bitcoin's price.
Yeah, I think this is like one of the biggest things that Kaspa needs to achieve to be able to really start convincing Bitcoiners. But at the end of the day, Kaspa is not really built to convince Bitcoiners. Like, there's not that many Bitcoiners compared to the whole world. So I hope we don't get too fixated on trying to convince Bitcoiners. I honestly just find it amusing that Bitcoiners want to spend time talking about Kaspa. I think that in itself shows a lot of merit for Kaspa, that it's in the conversation with Bitcoin. And so, yeah. But one of the biggest things is that Kaspa, a lot of people, if you're a Bitcoiner, you're definitely going to be looking at the performance of Kaspa against Bitcoin. That's an obvious thing you're going to be looking at, and I don't blame you, because if you're holding an asset that is basically like not performing better, then it's kind of pointless to be holding that asset. But I think a lot of people miss like the bigger picture here. This is Bitcoin against Kaspa. And then after I view this chart, we're going to view Kaspa against Bitcoin. But, looking at Bitcoin against Kaspa, you could see that Bitcoin has fallen 99% against Kaspa first. It did that first. Now I understand, yes, everything that comes out new and starts at zero is going to basically do that. Then ever since the bull market started, Bitcoin has started trying to gain against Kaspa. Since from here, since when? Since November of 2023, this was the bottom, and Bitcoin has been gaining against Kaspa, and it's gained about, well, right now it's gained about 450%. So if you've been holding Bitcoin instead of Kaspa since November 23, you're up 450%. I think what will really convince Bitcoiners is if we see a new all-time low against Bitcoin here for Kaspa. I think this is something important to hopefully happen. I think, and this is why I'm in Kaspa, because I actually firmly believe it can do this. I think Kaspa has the ability to be able to outperform Bitcoin without even flipping it. It doesn't need to flip it for it to outperform it. It just needs to gain more value, which it can, than Bitcoin in a certain period of time. Then if we look at the flip side of Kaspa versus Bitcoin, a lot of people don't realize is that Kaspa gave people like, over 50,000% gains first. And I don't think anything that goes up 50,000% should remain like up here forever. I think clearly over time, you're going to correct. And interestingly enough, Kaspa has corrected, the lowest it's corrected is 85%, which is actually very normal within the crypto world. But in terms of like, if we were to compare Bitcoin to Kaspa in terms of like year one starting, Kaspa is actually a really, really solid asset. I mean, if we're looking at just Kaspa itself doesn't even correct more than like 75%. It really struggles to correct. Look at that. That was from the last all-time high to now till the bottom was 75% decline. And ever since this bottom right here, Kaspa's up about 60% from that bottom. So in terms of like performance, just like in terms of dollar terms, like Kaspa is actually performing really well. This structure is very unique in crypto. It's not common. We see something that has this kind of upward trend. I just think that, Kaspa went up, from here, and not, mind you, this chart isn't the full chart. This only goes back to 2022. Kaspa was launched in November of 2021. So it's missing like 6 months of price data. But yeah, you could see here that Kaspa gained all the way to the all-time high, over 100,000%. So anyone in the right mind should expect this to eventually have a correction. I think that's silly to think that these things will have corrections. But like I said, long term, I firmly believe that Kaspa is going to outperform Bitcoin, and that's why I'm in Kaspa. That's one of the reasons why I'm in Kaspa. It's not the only reason, of course. But I think if we see Kaspa break out and make an all-time high against Bitcoin again, on this particular chart here, which, mind you, I'm pretty sure last time I checked, for it to make an all-time high, Kaspa would need to go to like 40 cents, I think, which isn't a lot of money in terms of market cap when you think about it in the crypto world. So, but yeah, if it does that, it, break an all-time high, then a lot of Bitcoiners will be like, okay, now we can't ignore this anymore. We gotta keep talking about it and keep bashing it. But I'm surprised that yet it being down this low, they're still talking about it and still bashing it instead of ignoring it. So yeah, let's move on from that.
So the
price
biggest
talk.
problem, in my opinion, is that a lot of people compare it to Bitcoin, right? There's a lot of other cryptocurrencies out there that people don't really compare to Bitcoin anymore. Like, for instance, Solana compares itself to ETH. ETH pretends to compare itself against Bitcoin, but its narrative is really confused anyway. Occasionally, it'll pretend that it competes with Bitcoin, but really, it's a smart contract platform. And Solana competes with it there, and they compete with the transaction amount and the speed of it, and really the ability of the usefulness of creating tokens and smart contracts with it as a platform. So it's very rare that these cryptocurrency communities actually try to pretend that they can compete with Bitcoin. But Kaspa definitely does. There's sort of this narrative going around that Kaspa is the silver to Bitcoin being gold. And this is just fundamentally flawed in many different ways. The main thing
Yes, it is. It is fundamentally flawed in different ways. You're correct to say that. The silver narrative for Kaspa is like, Bitcoiners pick this out like every single time, and it's just a misunderstanding of the narrative. They're taking the narrative, I think, way too seriously. Digital gold, digital silver, those narratives are so limiting to what these networks are, because at the end of the day, these things are technologies. So like, to even call Bitcoin digital gold, I think was probably the worst thing for it to be named, because it limited people. Want to stick with this view that this digital gold narrative just automatically makes it be that, and it just needs to be this store value, this kind of pet thing that you kind of hold forever, and not really use it. And if they do use it, they're using a layer 2 solution, which doesn't even support the base layer, and just makes you lose self-sovereignty and introduce centralization, introduce the things that you're trying to escape in the first place. So yeah, I think these narratives are very, very limiting, not to be taken so literal. The reason why Kaspa can't get away from silver is because literally the name Kaspa is Aramaic for silver or money. It's either silver or money. But the whole point of the narrative was because Litecoin came into the space and they tried to claim silver to Bitcoin's gold, and it's been like 15 years or so, probably a little bit less than that. And Litecoin's still not even being used more than Bitcoin. So, if you're going to claim to be a silver to Bitcoin's gold, that means you're going to be used more. And Litecoin's still not used more. And so the whole point of the silver narrative is just simply being that Kaspa's goal is to be used more than digital gold. Or in other words, Kaspa's goal is to be used more than Bitcoin. That is the end goal of Kaspa. And it's great to see that Kaspa has done this on certain days. There's certain days where Kaspa is being used more than Bitcoin relative to its size. And that's another thing about Kaspa, is that relative to the size of Kaspa, it's actually being basically used more than Bitcoin already. Bitcoin's only putting in about 400,000 transactions a day, whereas Kaspa, we're seeing it put in about 30,000 to 100,000 per day. If we're looking, let's just look at Kaspalytics, because Kaspalytics usually has the best kind of metrics for this stuff. But if we're looking at the transaction count and we just go in the last week here, you can see that Kaspa's having 74,000, 38,000, 46,000, 47,000 transactions, and Kaspa's only like a 2 billion market cap. And if we're comparing that to, Bitcoin transactions daily, Bitcoin's only putting in close to 600,000 right now, but mainly hovering around this range here. It doesn't really get higher than that. And so the thing with Kaspa is that, the goal is just to be used more, be the most used proof of work in the space. That's the goal. And the reason why I think this goal is actually very achievable is because Kaspa is just so convenient to be used. It's faster, and it's just as secure. It's just as decentralized as Bitcoin, and it just works for the user. So yeah, I think these narratives get taken too seriously, and then a lot of times they argue. I think Matthew Crowder is going to go into the argument that I'm going to disagree about, so we'll get into that later. But I'll let this
That I
guy
want to
talk it
address
out.
though is that Kaspa is incredibly young, and they change it a lot. It's much easier to change Kaspa to get consensus for a change than it is to get change in Bitcoin. So recently, Kaspa just underwent.
No, I wouldn't agree with this. I would not agree with this. Now so the argument that he's going into here is Kaspa is easy to update, or in other words, like produce a hard fork, than Bitcoin is. And honestly, this is just a bad argument because first off, Kaspa has only had one actual real hard fork that was like consensus driven, where everyone agreed that we should make this change, which was upgrading from 1 blocks per second to 10 blocks per second. The other hard fork that Kaspa had was fixing a bug that had happened. And if you didn't do the hard fork, then Kaspa would have just make it to where it is today because a bug happened. And Bitcoin's not, Bitcoin has done that before. Bitcoin has had a bug before where someone injected billions of Bitcoin to the supply. Now, it wasn't a hard fork, but this update that was proposed from Satoshi to Bitcoin, it required you to have to update. And if you didn't update, you eventually would be like taken off the network. You wouldn't be able to support the network. So it made sense to update. You had to, or else you'll just basically be taken off. So just because the network is changing doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's only bad when you don't have consensus. And the problem with Bitcoin is that they never have consensus to do any changes. But right now, they are in their own civil war with Bitcoin Core. And right now, they're having a problem of not even a hard fork. It's just an update to change. It's a soft fork that changes some things, but is still backwards compatible to other versions. And Bitcoin Core is, Bitcoiners are fighting amongst each other about this change because it's basically going to allow spam, because they call it spam on their network, to flood the chain even more. And it will prevent Bitcoin from being used for what they claim should be the only use, which is for monetary transactions, which that should be the goal. But they're claiming that they want to make sure Bitcoin is easily used for monetary transactions, but yet no one's really using it for that. And they're trying to get rid of spammers, which are like the only people who are actually using Bitcoin, which is like something that needs to be done for a proof of work network to actually survive. It needs to be used. So yeah, he's going to go into the argument that changing is bad always, when in reality, if you have consensus, then it's not bad. And if anything, they're just jealous that we have consensus to do logical changes. And that's just because Kaspa is just a lot more progressive when it comes to upgrading the network, because we believe that we should upgrade the network to what is necessary to allow Kaspa to be able to be used by the masses. Because we actually want Kaspa to be used massively. So it's important. And Bitcoiners want to stay true to these narratives that are very limiting to Bitcoin. And I honestly believe we're going to see another Bitcoin hard fork probably soon here because of this war, this civil war that's happening. I really feel like something may happen like that, but it's yet to be seen.
Went a hard fork, and there was no chain split or anything like that, but they did an upgrade from 1 block per second to 10 blocks per second. It was called the crescendo upgrade. And there was no division, or not a large amount of division, of people saying, oh, let's not do this upgrade. Of course, they did testnet. They made sure that they believed that it would work and that there wouldn't be any problems or anything like that. But they were able to do an upgrade to something that they believe can compete with Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is building out this additional alternative monetary network and will be the base layer of that network, and it will...
I mean, they didn't do the upgrade because they believed it can compete with Bitcoin. They did the upgrade because it's necessary to allow Kaspa to scale. We did it so that Kaspa can actually scale and handle more users on Kaspa. The goal wasn't like, oh, we're doing this to compete with Bitcoin. That's not the goal. The goal is to make Kaspa more usable for the world. So that's pretty much why the upgrade happened. It's necessary. And also, when Kaspa launched, this kind of goes back to its launch days. When Kaspa launched, it launched in an unfinished state. I'm pretty like, there's a lot of people that would say that 10 blocks per second was the initial idea of where they wanted Kaspa to start off from. That would have been the dream, to have Kaspa start off at 10 blocks per second. But because of the launch and how it went, and I have videos that talk about all that kind of stuff, but the way how the launch went, it forced them to just give Kaspa to the world and launch it in a very unfinished state and kind of just let the community come together and bring it to life. Which, in my opinion, was the best thing to happen to Kaspa. Because if it went the other way, Kaspa would have been a lot more centralized network in terms of like the launch of it and the people behind it. And I probably wouldn't even be here today, because it would not have checked off certain boxes that a lot of people value in crypto. Well, not in crypto, but value in a proof of work network that is aiming to be an alternative to money, which is like being fair launch and starting mining with CPU mining and just kind of just like a very organic launch, which is what Kaspa has and a lot of proof of work networks no longer have today.
Replace fiat currency as people adopt a hard money standard. And if that's what Kaspa believes they're doing as well, then by being very easy to change, it removes a sense of security.
Yeah, so it's not easy to change. Like this like, you need consensus. We just easily come to consensus because we agree to the changes, but it's not easy to change. It's still, whenever an update comes out, you as an individual, you as a node runner, have to manually update. Like, no one's forcing you to update. Nothing here is forcefully done. It's open source. And this is no different than Bitcoin. It's the same exact thing as Bitcoin. It's not easier to change. We simply just have better consensus over here to allow Kaspa to upgrade, because when you come into Kaspa, the social consensus is that, hey, Kaspa, what it is right now, is not the best yet, but it's going to even get better. It's already awesome, but it's going to get better. That's the consensus we have as a Kaspa community, if you want to call it that way. And so we just easily accept necessary changes if they're needed. And even Bitcoiners agree that Bitcoin is going to need changes like quantum resistance in the future. You guys are going to need that change. You guys need to come to consensus. And Bitcoiners say, yeah, that's a change that's needed, so everyone's just going to agree to it. Okay, well, it's the same thing for us over here. We agree that Kaspa needs to be scaled more, so we made the change.
Bitcoin is incredibly difficult to change. And when you are putting your future finance into the hands of a protocol, you want to be very certain what that protocol is in the future. With Kaspa, you don't necessarily know what it'll be in the future. They want to develop smart contract capability. We
do know what they want it to be in the future, and there's also ways where it doesn't affect your wealth. Like, if you look at the hard fork that just recently happened, Kaspa hard forked, and literally it was the most flawless thing ever. Everyone's wallets worked, because it's if you have consensus, it's really not that difficult. It's really not. It's not like a problem. But this is just an argument they're throwing out, I think, which is like kind of like just grasping for straws at this point.
They want to increase the 10 blocks to even faster throughput. They want to do everything on layer 1, and they believe that they have created a decentralized way to do that by having a system of pruning the nodes and still keeping the important data that they deem important, and therefore not needing archival data nodes. Now, the example that I want to go into, and the reason that I say this is an issue, is you can actually look at that change that they did, where they created a new system for pruning nodes, and this allowed them to, in their eyes, become more decentralized because it made it easier to run an effective node that had the information that everyone needs. Now, when they did that, they got rid of the ability easily within the software to run an archival node. And that is because there was a bug that happened, and there were problems with keeping track of certain types of transactions when they merged and created this pruning ability. And then they were leaning on the community around them that were running archival nodes to bring their data up front, and so that everyone could get on the same ledger again. So this is a prime example, right? And again, you get into these communities, they'll say this wasn't a problem, we fixed the problem, blah, 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 blah. Again, this is just to show how something can break really easily. And you cannot, again, rely on something that is changing fundamentally so often as the base layer of money. That's what.
Okay, so again, archival nodes. This argument is this is the hardest argument for Kaspa. Not the hardest argument, but like this is the biggest argument against Kaspa that people make, and it's just being ignorant to the truths about it. Kaspa needs 0 archival nodes. Archival nodes are totally voluntary. They're being run right now voluntarily. And if they all went away, Kaspa would still go on. There's 0 reason for them to actually exist to keep the network secure, decentralized, or anything like that. You don't need them. You don't need them. And he's talking about here how, a network's so fragile. The bug that happened was 2 weeks into the network launching. Bitcoin had a bug 2 years into it launching. These networks aren't perfect, and this is a problem with like the Bitcoin world. Is like they think Bitcoin's perfect, and it's far from it. None of these networks are perfect. They all have some kind of flaws in them. But it still remains true that Kaspa's offering people what they want, and it's working every single day. It operates and it lives another day. It's proving itself. So the pruning mechanism is absolutely needed and necessary to actually scale proof of work. If you don't, then you won't be able to have a scalable network because it will become too costly to run a node. And another problem with that is the fact that in the Bitcoin world, any newcomer that needs to come to the network has to download the entire network since 2009. To then sync to the network. And this is just completely unnecessary anymore. It is provably, factually, unnecessarily needed at all for a proof of work network to function. You don't need it anymore. And Kaspa's using that new technology that is not needed anymore so that it can scale. And like I said, though, there's people who are voluntarily still keeping the transaction data. And then, if you guys remember my debate with Rajat, that was a very common thing to talk about, was just the missing transactions that are missing that they're missing. And it's just as simple as this. Transaction history cannot prove to you that any fraud happened. Even if you have the history, you can't prove anything, that anything happened. Because if fraud occurred, it would have been in the malicious miner's interest to create valid transactions that appear valid on the network but are malicious. That's what they should have done. If they didn't, then it would just appear as an invalid transaction and everybody would know. And that's the main thing, is we rely on social consensus to know that nothing bad happened. And this is the same exact thing as Bitcoin. Within the Bitcoin world, you have social consensus to tell you when certain things happen and if something bad happened. And we rely on the fact that, hey, Bitcoin's here 16, 17 years later, so it must mean that nothing's bad happened in the past. That's just social consensus. So the more years that gets put into Kaspa, the more of this missing transactions that's a problem is going to just become less and less irrelevant, because the people who inform themselves are going to actually realize it's not a problem, because it isn't. I mean, really, I came onto the network in 2023. The missing transactions are back in like 2022, 2020, or 2021, in that area, in that ballpark, early days. I wasn't even around. Who cares? Literally, who cares? Because cryptographically, Kaspa always keeps the data of every single Kaspa and what address it belongs to. That is kept forever. So the node itself cryptographically verifies that we are running on the same exact proof that started from Genesis. And I mean, like, if you're, and another thing is, like, 99% of people are not going to know what in the world we are both talking about here, what he's talking about here, and what I'm talking about here. Most of the people, the masses, are going to just want to come to something that works. That's what they're going to care about. No one's going to be doing this deep due diligence research. Oh, who's the founder? Who's this? Most people don't do that. Most people that I onboard to Kaspa don't ask me, what's the founder? Are there missing transactions? They don't ask me that. They just say, what's Kaspa? Oh, here's Kaspa. Here, let me send it to you. Wow, that's fast. Cool. Adopt. It's just this is really just a non-issue. Like it's just lack of understanding of how Kaspa works. And I'm here explaining it, wanting to explain it, because I don't think we should just shy away from people criticizing Kaspa this way. We should talk about it still, but just state the facts. Like it's really not an issue. Before I continue here, I want to read some of the chat. Let's see here. I feel like Kaspa is the good guy in the bad world. In a world of centralized tokens issued by companies, it comes with robust fundamentals and tech better than Bitcoin, yet people running after nonsense. Yeah, I mean, yeah, on paper, the technology is better than Bitcoin. I mean, if someone can't admit that, that's kind of like silly. Like on paper, the technology is better than Bitcoin, and it's much more useful for a user. Has wallet number 2 been identified? I don't think so. People speculate that it may be Binance, but I definitely believe it's an exchange, but we just don't know who it is for sure. K Wisher says, greetings. What's up, man? Thank you for coming to the stream. I hear it. Is it fast? I don't know if you're asking about the video. Yes, the video is put to be faster. That way we're not sitting here forever, because the video is 27 minutes. So
we're coming from. Yeah. We're coming from a fiat system where the Federal Reserve will just decide to jack interest rates up after saying that they're going to have a near zero interest rate for a long time. And if you've capitalized, if you've put all of your money into instruments believing what the Fed has said, and then they change course and change the monetary policy, then you are out of luck. And this is exactly how Silicon Valley Bank blew up. They believed the Fed was going to keep interest rates low, so they held a lot of long-term bonds. And then the Fed increased the rate, and those bonds lowered in value to reflect an effective yield that was similar to the or whatever the bond market was interested in, and that lowered the value of those. So when they needed to sell them to give people back their money through the bank, they were at a loss on those bonds. And that was because monetary policy changed. And this is a similar aspect to a software that can change relatively easily. And
no monetary policy changed when we hard forked from 1 block per second to 10 blocks per second. Yes, it's true. Can monetary policy change? Like the supply of Kaspa or how much fees cost? Those things can change, but none of those got changed. So everyone in the Kaspa community is pretty against any kind of changes that would require increasing the supply. Yeah, I think increasing the supply of Kaspa, if that happens, like it's kind of like accepting defeat for Kaspa. And I'm pretty sure everyone would agree with me here that we don't want that to happen. We're very against that. And if any developer thinks that they're going to propose that, I'll be the first one here making videos being against that and trying to get people to try to have consensus to be against that. And then if it happens, and unfortunately we don't have consensus, then yeah, like that's shooting Kaspa right in the foot and messing up the monetary policy of Kaspa. We want it to have a fixed supply. We want it to remain how it functions in general, but we want it to scale. That's what we have consensus on here. We don't have consensus to make any like substantial bad monetary changes, or like adding like extra tail emission to Kaspa. Like I personally, the whole tail emission debate, it's something to be debated about for sure, but I just firmly believe that shouldn't be Kaspa's goal. Kaspa's goal should be, first off, being the most usable proof of work and gaining fees from people using it. And if we can achieve that, then we're on a good course to just keep moving forward. These other methods of trying to like solve some of the security budget and stuff like that, a lot of us are against. We feel like that's a failure for Kaspa if it needs to add a tail emission or it needs to increase the supply. But I mean, in the Bitcoin world, there's already people in the Bitcoin world who are literally saying, yeah, I really don't see Bitcoin surviving on the security budget, and so I'm okay if they increase the supply. So there's already people okay with that stuff in the Bitcoin world. But, and generally, like, the masses, the consensus is to be against these things. But Kaspa isn't changing any, like, monetary things here.
I would say Kaspa has that. Now, there's a living founder, there's core contributors, there's early developers, miners that have a lot of influence within this. And if you look at Bitcoin, I've actually seen some comments from Kaspa people talking about how ridiculous the op return, the Bitcoin core versus Bitcoin knots decision was, and how Kaspa doesn't have that problem because we can just include op return, we can include arbitrary data, we have 10 blocks per second, we can have all that. It's not a big deal to bloat our chain because we have pruning and what have you, right?
But you can't bloat our chain. Our chain doesn't get bloated. It's not bloating. It's not called bloating. It's actually called a success. So if the network of Kaspa gets used to its max capacity, where fees kick in and miners start getting paid, that's not a bad thing. That's a success. That means people are using Kaspa. People actually want to use it, and that means it justifies for Kaspa to scale even more. Because the thing is, Kaspa is not limited. So it's not bloating the chain. It's using Kaspa. Any kind of use, because Kaspa is truly permissionless. It actually lets anyone use it how they want. I don't want to use it for NFTs and tokens and stuff like that, but that's just my decision. If you want to, go ahead, do that. Kaspa is freedom money. This is true freedom programmability money right here, where you can use it how you want to use it. And if Kaspa bloats or reaches its max capacity, that's not a bad thing. That's a success. Kaspa's being used, and that's exactly what we want to see. We want Kaspa to get used.
But what we go back to here is that such a small change, like changing the op return data carrier size limit, has massive resistance to it from the Bitcoin community.
It has massive resistance because the Bitcoin community has found consensus in thinking that doing nothing is the best thing for Bitcoin. That's the consensus that Bitcoin has reached. And so that's why it gets massive pushback, because it's actually kind of changing something a little bit more than usual, than other changes. But I mean, this whole issue that's happening within Bitcoin is just goes to show that Kaspa and Bitcoin are literally in the same boat in terms of how development works. If developers start proposing something that people don't like, a war happens. But in Kaspa world, there's no proposals that we don't have consensus on. We like what's being presented. We have consensus, and that's just the benefit of being in Kaspa right now, is that we don't have these civil wars between certain updates.
So what that signifies to me is just how difficult it is and how resistant Bitcoiners are to changing something fundamental. And Michael Saylor has talked about the biggest threat to Bitcoin.
If you hear this guy in the beginning of the video, he says it's his opinion, which makes this video irrelevant to begin with. Yeah, I mean, like, it's all of our opinions. We're just giving opinions out here, and I just hope that either he watches this live stream, or other people who watch this video and are in the Bitcoin world, think critically and just be open to hearing other people's opinions, people against his thoughts, because I mean, I think that's the best way we can actually move forward and find solutions, is if we actually hear each other out, and remove the person too. Remove the person from this and just listen to what's being stated. Because I have nothing against him. In fact, I talked to this guy before he got more popular on YouTube. I had DM'd this guy on X because he was following me on X for a while. And I asked him, I said, "You're a Bitcoiner. Why are you following me?" And he told me he had like 1% in Kaspa. This guy told me he had like 1% in Kaspa. I don't know what he has now. It seems like he's taken the approach to just be against it completely. But Kaspa has been on his radar for a very long time. And so, it is what it is. But, we should just give our opinions and leave the personal insults out of it. And unfortunately, a lot of Bitcoiners don't know how to do that.
Bitcoin is overzealous software developers who want to leave their mark on Bitcoin, who want to change something and create something that doesn't necessarily need to be added. Now, when Bitcoin has been changed, there ends up being vulnerabilities within those changes, right? SegWit was a change, and it had this SegWit discount within it. But what that led to was people using that discount to create inscriptions, which bloated the UTXO set. So right there, you can see that a change to the code can have unforeseen consequences. And
I totally agree, but people like this are slandering something with false claims. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's false things being said for sure. But you know, it's the internet. They're going to be able to say what they want, and the good thing is that the Kaspa community informs themselves so that we can actually have a proper response instead of just saying you're stupid, you're an idiot, or something like that, because that's just silly. Like that doesn't get anyone anywhere, and it doesn't teach anybody anything. So it's better that we just inform ourselves and state the facts, because like when you know what you know, there's no reason to be getting upset about it, because you just state the facts and you're living in the truth of what things are, and there's you don't need to add any other kind of like extra filler to make your point. Just state your facts and keep going.
And it's much easier, again, to change Kaspa's code. It seems like they have a much easier ability to reach consensus, probably because the developers are a smaller group, probably because the developers are highly trusted by the community around them, whether they should be or shouldn't be. I'm not saying there isn't really, really smart people working on this, but what I am trying to show people here is that Kaspa, although it's proof of work, it's designed to be a peer-to-peer digital cash system, doesn't necessarily compete with what Bitcoin is. Now, I want to talk about...
You're right. It doesn't. Because Kaspa competes in many areas that Bitcoin can never compete in. That's why Kaspa is not the next Bitcoin. I don't agree with that, and I agree with you. I agree with you when you say that Kaspa is not the next Bitcoin. That's such a limiting thing to kind of think.
But a few other things. I know this video is the one biggest problem. I would say that is the biggest problem. There are a few other things as well. And I will say that Kaspa's done some smart things. They did proof of work, but they changed the algorithm. They're not running SHA-256. They're doing K-heavy hash. So you can't do a 51% attack with a bunch of old Bitcoin miners. You need custom, you need new ASICs, which are developed by all these different companies. So that's a smart decision. The other thing they did was they changed basically the halving or the block subsidy amount so that it was issue faster, right? And that's another claim they have, right? Oh, Bitcoin's going to take until 2140 to have all the block subsidy gone, and Kaspa is going to have that by 2030 something, right? Again, my numbers aren't exact here because I haven't written anything down here. I'm just going off the top of my head, and for me, it really doesn't matter. These are the numbers here, as much as they might be important to people and they're going to be points of contention, I'm sure, they don't really matter that much actually. What is going, because really it doesn't matter if it's 2030 or 2040, that or whatever. It's much sooner that there's no block subsidy. So this is a way, in their eyes, to bootstrap the system, but to do it in a way that is more fair launch, because people know about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin miners are going to jump into whatever is profitable. So there's going to be a lot faster adoption of Kaspa than there was of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was rather obscure for many years and the technology was very rudimentary and needed a lot of development, whereas the technology of Bitcoin miners is much more advanced now, and that was easier to adjust and go to Kaspa. So their solution to that was to have a faster block issuance of Coinbase blocks, or from the newly created Kaspa, I guess is what it is. But this creates a lot of issues. This creates basically a difficulty adjustment much more frequently. That's what their strategy was to deal with this, right? So they have they don't cut it in half, but they reduce the amount of new Kaspa coming out after so many blocks or whatever, so much time. I don't have.
It's every single month. Kaspa reduces its block reward a little bit every single month.
To know all these specifics, to just know what is actually going on and why I believe that's a problem. So when you do that, you're creating more and more difficulty rather rapidly, and the mining industry that is associated with it is going to have trouble adjusting to that difficulty. And what we've seen is we've actually seen the hash rate of Kaspa go from, I think they peaked just above maybe 1 exahash, and now they're close to half of that, or 40% down from that roughly. So, and that's because it's no longer profitable to mine for a lot of these miners that had higher electricity costs.
So you're saying that mining companies have to adjust, like it's more difficult to adjust? And I don't know if I would agree if it's more difficult. I mean, yeah, it's happening every month is a lot more smoother than having a 50% cut every 4 years. I mean, like, I feel like, yeah, you got a mining company has 4 years to like strategize how they're going to prepare for the block halving of Bitcoin. But I mean, it's still a 50% cut. Like, if Bitcoin doesn't double, then what you were making as a company, you just got to be ready that it's going to be cut in half. And then, it all goes down to the point that the block reward was not supposed to be like forever. That's not the point of the block reward. The block reward was just supposed to just bootstrap the community to kind of like have a reason to start mining and start getting involved. But the end goal should be massive usage, because fees need to take over. And so Bitcoiners, some of them think that they have until 2140, because they think that the security budget becomes a concern when the block reward goes to zero, but that's not true. The security budget becomes a concern once it's no longer increasing over time, or at least staying the same level over time, and it starts decreasing too fast. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on there about that. But the emission schedule of Kaspa, I think was a genius idea. I have a video where I talk about, you know, why I think it's a genius idea, and it just made so much sense. Like, if Kaspa had a slow emission schedule, we literally have Marathon mining digital mining Kaspa. The number one Bitcoin miner is mining Kaspa right now. Imagine if Kaspa had a slow emission schedule like Bitcoin. Marathon Mining would have like literally held all of the Kaspa coins from us. Like, it would have been the distribution would have been so much more centralized of Kaspa than what it is. So it was finding a good middle ground, because it's impossible to get something perfect. But I think what was chosen was a good idea. It's a good idea because it's so difficult now to launch a proof of work network that you know is going to become ASIC compatible, and not have ASIC companies jump on it and then like hoard all of the coins. Like, this is like one of the things that KDA people never understood, is like they have such a slow emission schedule, and literally like all the coins are just being first obtained by companies, by crypto mining companies. And like, they don't get it. Like, they just don't get it. That's just such a bad thing for the distribution of the coin and how decentralized the coin can actually be.
And the idea here is that, you know, this is all going to bootstrap and become transaction fees, but, you know, we have a lot longer of a runway for Bitcoin to figure that out. We have till 2140 to figure out how to have a subsidy that allows for the profitability of continued security, because the Bitcoin mining, or the mining of a cryptocurrency, of a proof of work cryptocurrency, helps protect it against a 51% double spending attack. Whereas, you know, we've seen a lot less interest in miners and a lot less ability, right? Because they need to have the natural incentive. There's no natural incentive to run and support a network. You have to be paid to do so. That's how this works. So,
I mean, there are incentives. Like, I'm mining right now at a loss, but my loss is so insignificant, I'm willing to bear that loss. And then on top of that, the reason why I stay mining is because I actually believe in the network increasing in its value in the future. And many others believe the same way, and they mine at a loss, which this happened in Bitcoin too. I mean, a lot of Bitcoiners mined in a loss because they just believed what the future value could potentially be, and they thought it was worth it to take that little loss at that time and then just kind of wait longer term. So it's not black and white. Like, the mining world is very complex. There's different reasons why people mine. There's different reasons why people stay online. And then there's reasons why people go offline. But it's not just like a very simple topic to just be like, oh, well, hash rate goes down, that means it's over. I mean, the hash rate has been very volatile for Bitcoin as well. So, yeah.
We've seen that a lot of miners are leaving the Kaspa network. A lot of miners have made a lot of profits from Kaspa. I think any early miners made a ton of money, right? But the early miners of Bitcoin did too. And there's still the ability to continue earning.
Kaspa hash rate dropped because of greed miners who dumped millions of dollars in Kaspa to buy miners last year, thus wiping out buying power, and now this liquidity was missing in price stayed low. Yeah, I think people FOMO'd into mining for Kaspa. I think that's what happened. And we saw a huge surge in the hash rate. I mean, huge. I mean, we're talking, let me see it here. Let me pull up the hash rate chart. Like, this isn't normal. The amount of hash rate that Kaspa got, especially coming from this. I mean, coming from 0.14 exahash to then just surge to 1.59 exahash at the peak. That's a huge increase, man. And people just overextended themselves. Miners overextended themselves and took a super huge risk. And then, of course, once the price started falling a little bit, they're going to sell too. So the hash rate right now, the hash rate is kind of like finding a new floor. And that's the thing. Miners, the ASIC miners are always getting more powerful and more better. Like, I just upgraded my miner right now. So now as a small miner, I'm doing 4.2 terahash, whereas A year ago, as a small miner, I was only doing 200 gigahash. So over time, like the hash rate over time, long term, is generally just going to keep going up because the miners become more powerful, and they remain, and the cheapest miners become more powerful. So it means that long term, the hash rate is generally going to stay pretty high. It's not going to just drop to zero. Like, it's not like just because someone is no longer profitable at all, they just turn off automatically. That's just not true.
In making money from Bitcoin mining, and there will be forever in my eyes, or as close to forever as we can get. And the
good news is that it gave us more time to accumulate Kaspa at a cheap price, and the consolidation is coming to an end. We are near the end of it. That's kind of how I believe what was happening. Kaspa suffering from success. literally the whole hash rate surging that high, and then and then consolidating back is literally Kaspa suffering from success. It was because mining was so profitable, miners overextended themselves and bought way too many miners, and was not considering the risk that could be they could encounter. That's pretty much kind of like what happened there. So yeah, Kaspa suffering from success is a really good way to put it.
Slow halving of Bitcoin's block subsidy will facilitate that. Right now, people are earning more from the block subsidy of 3.125.
Bitcoin University just posted about you 30 minutes ago. Yeah, he made a YouTube video about me, and we're gonna cover that. We're gonna get there. I'm doing this one first. I'm leaving that one for the last. The best for last, right? But thank you for the $2 donation, man. Really appreciate that. Now I don't know if do you mean just the video that he made, or do you literally mean like he made like an actual post like on X about me or something like that? Let me just check X real quick. Yeah, I'm blocked by him on X, unfortunately. He blocked me just because we didn't agree about something. I mean, we were just having a civil conversation for once, and then he just blocked me after we just didn't really agree. Like, we just agreed to we should have just been able to agree to disagree, but I just get blocked, and I'm like, why? Like, I'm not saying anything crazy. I'm just stating my my opinion, my views. But like I said, like the joke I made, I think what happens is Bitcoiners know that they can't produce more blocks than Kaspa on their network. So the only way to get more blocks is to start blocking all of us on X. That's like one of the only ways. So yeah, we'll get into that stuff later. Very interesting stuff later.
In dollar amounts than they were from the amount of the previous halving. So even though they were earning twice as much Bitcoin, the purchasing power in dollars amounts is higher now with half as much. So this is a reflective way of the price having to move up and being the variable that does move up to facilitate the increased amount of hash rate and protection of the network. I think the other thing here to recognize.
How much Kaspa are you making a day per mining? So I solo mine, so it's kind of hard to know for sure. It kind of fluctuates, but the general amount that I should be making, which is a good way to check this, is go to Hero Miners. This is what I like to do. I just like to go to Kaspa Hero Miners, and then you can just scroll down where it says estimating mining profits, and you can kind of put in how much hash rate you have. So like my miner should be doing 4.2 terahash, and you can see that daily I should be making about 24 Kaspa daily. That's like what is expected on a pool, but it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to make that much. But if you solo mine for a whole month, you're generally going to get very close to what this is estimating, sometimes even more, or sometimes just slightly under it. But I can actually check right now how much blocks I found today, for example. So 24.3 if I go to the calculator here and put that in, 24.3 divided by the current block reward, which is cast.fyi. Let's go to here. The current block reward is 4.62. So if I go divided by 4.62, every day I should be expecting to get 5.2 blocks, so almost 6 blocks. As of recording right now, it is, what time is it? 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. I have so far 3 blocks today already found. So I need to find 2 to get really close. And if I find 3 more today, then I just outperformed my daily estimate amount that I should actually get.
Recognize is that the network effect of financial protocols is incredibly different than technological network effects, right? If you have a MySpace profile, there is no financial cost to you switching to a Facebook profile. If you hold Bitcoin and you sell that to buy Ethereum, Doge, Cas, you have a real barrier. You're getting rid of one to get the other. There's a real.
You can buy both. I don't know if like people don't realize this. You can buy both if you want to. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's no need to do this tribalism where it's like you need to choose one or the other and hold one and that's it. It's like you can buy both. People who diversify, typically it's said that, diversification is for people who don't know what they're doing. But people who are rich already, who have a lot of money, they diversify because, for example, Bitcoin ain't going to give you a 10x in a year. That's just a fact. But if you compare that to something like Kaspa could give you a 10x within a year's time because it's just much smaller. So you can buy both. There's nothing against that. There's no law against that. No one's going to knock on your door. You could totally have both. I don't promote here Kaspa maximalism. I have maximalism for certain ideas like proof of work, sound money, hard money. The project needs to actually be trying to be an alternative digital cash system to the dollar. I'm a maxi for those things. And at the current moment, Kaspa is one of the best networks that kind of fulfills those ideals that I want to actually be a part of. And it's my personal decision that I don't hold any cold storage Bitcoin anymore. I sold all my cold storage Bitcoin for Kaspa, and I still have exposure to Bitcoin in an ETF. And I know that's a very risky thing to do. It's not the smartest thing to do. But hey, that's my risk tolerance, and that's just where I'm at because that's what I want to do. I mean, it's just my personal decision. Don't take that as like what you need to do. This is just what I'm doing. But this idea that like you need to choose one, I understand what he's getting at though, because like, hey, if you're gonna choose Kaspa, it's because you believe it's gonna outperform Bitcoin, so you're better off holding Kaspa. Which is but there could be a world where Kaspa and Bitcoin just compete in outperformance, meaning that long term, each one is outperforming the other, but during certain periods, one is doing better, and stuff like that. It's not. I don't think it's just one. Like Bitcoin is getting bigger, so the bigger it gets, the harder it becomes for it to grow in value. So it's not going to be easy to continue giving people returns, especially people with much less money. Like, if people who are putting $1,000 into Bitcoin today, you're not going to become a millionaire by the time you retire for sure. Now, if Bitcoin, 100x's from here, which would be insane. I mean, 100x would mean that it goes to a $200 trillion market cap, which is probably very unrealistic. 100x on $1,000 is still only $100,000. So it's just like a millionaire. You got to put way more money now into Bitcoin if you actually want to make riches. We want to make wealth. So, there's that aspect to it. It's not black and white where it's just like you got to hold one. If you hold one, you can't hold the other. You can hold both.
Real financial difference. There's a switching cost is what there is. So what that does is that helps facilitate the network effect. The network effect, right? Bitcoin being sort of the first cryptocurrency that works really well, being having all the right incentives, being built properly to be structurally secure and to really give a lot of power to the nodes, really has allowed it to continue to gain market share, right? We can see Bitcoin's dominance is what, 64% or something of the entire cryptocurrency market. And it's the only.
Let's actually take a look at this now, because I think it's not 64% anymore. Let's take a look here. It's 58%. The Bitcoin dominance is now sitting at 58%. Market share, it's kind of went off a cliff here, which this circle I drew here was kind of like a circle that I was insinuating that once the dominance gets to these levels, like anywhere in this range, a drop off is probably gonna maybe happen. So I drew this circle like a while ago, and a drop off recently happened, because it seems like we're following history again. Like a bull market may start and Bitcoin's gonna lose dominance while everything else starts to pump more and stuff like that. Seems like history might repeat again. We'll see. But the cherry picking with the dominance and the price is just, it's so funny. Like I could cherry pick right now and tell everybody, hey, if you bought Bitcoin on, what day is this? This is the 22nd of June. Since the 22nd of June, if you have been holding Bitcoin, you've actually been losing against Kaspa. You are down 20% against Kaspa since the 22nd of June. Should I just cherry pick this all day with them and be like, hey, look, you're losing right now if you've been holding Bitcoin. And at one point you were losing by 35%, 37%. But no, I mean, we could cherry pick all day.
Only one big enough for the whole world to actually put some value into. The other ones are too small to put for any serious money to go into, because the liquidity is going to be too difficult if they needed to get out of that position, right? That's the way that large money thinks about. They need an asset that is big enough that they aren't moving the asset's value. So Bitcoin's market cap is 2 trillion right now. It takes a huge amount of capital to move that in any significant way. It's highly liquid. You can get in and out of a position without affecting the market. With Kaspa, that isn't the case, right? And I'm not saying that they can't grow, but I'm just saying that it's an entirely different asset. And this is the way I would look at it.
Well, yeah, of course, a big rich person can't inject billions of dollars into Kaspa right now, but if they have billions, that means that they have millions or hundreds of thousands, and they could still buy hundreds of thousands of Kaspa. They don't have to do they don't have to do the billion. They're going to do what is actually possible and wouldn't actually affect the price that much.
I would look at Bitcoin as a financial protocol that has a network effect that doesn't allow other financial protocols to compete very easily. And Kaspa is a technology that can compete with the other technologies within there. If they adopt smart contract capability, like Turing complete contracts, and they increase the throughput even more, and they continue to build out their ecosystems and ability to mint tokens and all of this kind of stuff, DeFi, whatever, they can compete with the other cryptos that are doing that too. They can 100% compete with that. But that's how you should look at it, in my opinion, and that's how I look at it. I'm buying Bitcoin as a savings mechanism. I believe that it will become the base layer monetary network. And if I was to invest in Kaspa, I would think of it as an investment. I wouldn't think of it as savings. I would think of it as, I think this technology has some merit. I believe that the pruning is effective as they are saying it is. I believe that there'll for some reason be an incentive for...
I'm pretty sure this guy still has some Kaspa. The way, his view, and this is what I made a post. After I saw this video, I remember this part. I made a post and I said, this is going to be the next stage of Kaspa. At first, it was like, ignore it. Like, it's trash, it's garbage, ignore it. Now, it's going to be, hey, Kaspa has good merit. It's going to compete with the other guys, like Ethereum, Solana. It's going to compete with those guys. But Bitcoin, no. It just won't compete with Bitcoin. Don't think that. The other stuff, it's going to compete with, though. It's better than those things, and... I think it's gonna probably gain more value than those other things. But Bitcoin, no, don't go there. So that's like the mindset is changing. At first, it was complete rejection. Now it's like Kaspa's just an investment. It's not money. It's not savings for me. It's just an investment for me. And I'm like, if you're thinking this as a Bitcoiner, what are the masses gonna start thinking, man?
For archival nodes to be run, or that they're not needed. I believe that, and I believe that super fast layer 1 transactions is important. I see a value to that as opposed to scaling in layers. That would be the bet I would be taking. And I would be taking that bet, not comparing it to Bitcoin. I would be comparing it to ETH, Solana, Sol, and these other cryptos that I don't own because I don't want to take that bet. I want to take the bet of the monetary network of Bitcoin, increasing in value, increasing in adoption more rapidly than any others, pushing all the others out through the protocol.
What is adoption though? That I think that's like, that needs to be defined. What is Bitcoin adoption? Is Bitcoin adoption ETFs? Is Bitcoin adoption Michael Saylor announcing he bought another 100,000 Bitcoin or something like that? Is Bitcoin adoption using the Lightning Network? What's Bitcoin adoption? Bitcoin adoption should be the base layer transaction moving upwards long term. In my opinion, that's adoption. And not only that, it creating a security budget that's sustainable outside of the block reward. That to me is true Bitcoin adoption. If we start seeing the base layer starting to get used more, not less, over long periods of time. So that to me is adoption. Not ETFs, not Michael Saylor saying buy Bitcoin because it's going to go to 1 million and I'm going to buy more Bitcoin and let Coinbase hold my Bitcoin. Not the Lightning Network. That's not really real adoption of Bitcoin. Real adoption is seeing that base layer get used. That's my opinion on it.
Network effect and becoming the dominant base layer money for the entire world. So there's this other thing here too, where I did talk about how Bitcoin has had software changes, how it's difficult to do them, but it's not impossible. So this is the idea partially from Andreas Antonopoulos, who basically said Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin when you're looking at altcoins. And this is the idea that Bitcoin is programmable money and that, in fact, there's no resistance to creating layers on top of Bitcoin. Nobody has stopped LND from developing the Lightning Network, from Core Lightning, or the Blockstream from developing Liquid, which is a side chain that pegs in and out of Bitcoin. Nobody stopped anybody from doing that. Nobody has any ability to stop people from doing that. It is very difficult to change Bitcoin on its base layer in its consensus, but people can develop freely on any layer using Bitcoin. And if the technology is so great that people are talking about with Kaspa, that I believe that aspects of that could be taken and added to additional layers of Bitcoin in some way, if there actually is some use case for it, and Bitcoin again will be the next Bitcoin.
Okay, so his argument is that Kaspa's technology, if it's useful enough, a layer 2 will adopt it for Bitcoin. That's still not using Bitcoin if you're on that layer 2 then. I mean, like, it's just like you're just going to another layer. And this is the thing. I think this is the thing Kaspa needs to continuously, if you're in Kaspa, you need to educate yourself around this topic, that layer 2s are not a solution. They are, especially for like Bitcoin at least, layer 2s are not a solution for scaling. They should not be a solution for scaling, because layer 2s only reintroduce the very things we're trying to escape from, fiat. So layer 2 adoption is not Bitcoin adoption. That's why I say layer 2 is not Bitcoin. I don't literally mean that like, oh, when you're using a layer 2, like no Bitcoin's being interacted with, but it's just not actually using your Bitcoin. You're locking up your Bitcoin so that then you can use it on a layer 2 that's changing a digital number. And then once you're done, you can move back to the base layer and settle what you did. But the problem is that since that layer 2 is limited by the throughput of the base layer, most people are going to just do custodial Lightning or custodial Strike, Cash App. They're just going to use these layer 2 custodial versions, and these layer 2 custodial versions can put their own fees onto them when you're trying to get off and go back to your self-sovereign base layer. And so, like I said, my fear of Bitcoin is that it's turning into the fiat system that we kind of already have, just with a base layer that is a lot more resistant to change, but not really replacing anything. It's just more so another means for different elites to control the masses in terms of how to use Bitcoin faster, because what they want to do is give you a solution. They want to give you a layer 2 solution that they control. And this layer 2 solution allows them to have more control, and they can impose different fees on you. They can actually have custody of your Bitcoin, basically. Things can go wrong. That's just the point is, no one can disagree with me here. The layer 1 is much more secure, much more decentralized than a layer 2. That's just an obvious thing. And the whole point of Kaspa is to give people the ability to remain on that base layer, that self-sovereign base layer.
So,
not to mention, a lot of people are being forced to basically stay on exchanges right now with Bitcoin. I got off of a call with an interview with somebody else, and the guy, he was telling me that right now he's using like the Coinbase credit card and the Gemini credit card, and he's receiving Bitcoin in cash back for that card. But he was telling me, he was like, but I'm realizing that I'm kind of forced to keep my Bitcoin on the exchange, because if I wanted to self-custody it, I would have to pay 3/4 of what I earned in cash back in fees to self-custody. And I'm like, exactly, because Bitcoin encourages people to not self-custody. It doesn't encourage the masses to self-custody. Maybe the cypherpunk true believers will, but I don't think there's enough of them out there that are actually going to make Bitcoin, used more. And not only that, I mean, even if you do value self-custody and you do value that stuff, you still are encouraged to stack Bitcoin on a centralized exchange and wait until you have enough money to then send it to your address, because if you load your address with too many UTXOs, if Bitcoin got adopted how they say that, how people dream it could be adopted, it may price you out of ever using that Bitcoin, because if your address has too many UTXOs, it costs more money for the UTXOs to get consolidated when you want to move your Bitcoin out of the address. And that's a huge thing. Kaspa doesn't have that problem because the fees are so cheap, and it's also very convenient and fast to self-custody, and it's very, very cheap to do so. So you don't suffer from that problem. So it encourages people to self-custody. I can actually onboard people onto Kaspa on the fly. If I'm talking with someone, I just say, hey, download this app. Let me send you some Kaspa. If I was trying to do that for Bitcoin, most people do Lightning Network, which that's not even adopting Bitcoin. You're not even using the Bitcoin base layer when you onboard that person. Not only that, that person probably has no idea about layer 2s and the difference between layer 2 and layer 1. So they think they have Bitcoin. I have Bitcoin. It's in my Lightning Network here. It's not even they don't even have it in the base layer. So I'm just looking at this at a logical viewpoint. For the masses, Kaspa is just much more attractive and easy to get to onboard people. So,
thing I want to talk about just briefly here is the idea of Kaspa being silver to Bitcoin's gold. If you look back into the history of bimetallism, it was a disaster. It was incredibly difficult for individuals and nations and businesses to figure out exchange rates between all of these things. I think I talked about this already. India adopted a silver standard.
He's talking about, the silver is the Bitcoin. In the beginning of the video, I already talked about how, hey, the silver narrative, don't take that so literally. The main point to grab from it is that silver was used more than gold in the real world. And the goal of Kaspa is to be used more than Bitcoin in the digital world. That's it. Everything else that silver has that was bad for it or whatever doesn't apply to Kaspa because it's a technology. It's not limited to the real world silver. These narratives can be very limiting. Kaspa is Aramaic for silver or money. That's why I'm Kaspa silver, but it's Aramaic for silver or money. It's not to be taken so literally. And I already kind of talked about that.
Money were rewarded throughout history. And that's in the physical world, right? Where there is sort of a use case of having a lesser value, more divisible type of unit for money, right? Like silver was. Whereas with programmable money, with digital money, Bitcoin can be broken down to 100 millionth of a Satoshi.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's just the argument that because the reason why silver was used more in the real world was because silver was easier to move around than gold. But we got to remember, we're in the digital world now, and with Kaspa, it is easier to move around than Bitcoin. So that's why it has the chance of actually being more usable, because it is easier to use it than Bitcoin. It's not about a divisibility kind of thing like that. It's not about that. It's about the use of it. And how easy it is, because in the digital world, everyone's used to internet speeds. That's what everyone's used to. And so why don't we have our wealth move at the same rate? That's what we should have. and Kaspa allows that to be a thing. And not only just in crypto, it's just the fact that it allows a proof of work network to do this. Because the majority of people who view crypto as a savings tool and an alternative to fiat agree that it needs to be proof of work for you to actually compete in that world.
Down the line, there's, pre-mines, less of a pre-mine, no pre-mine, right? And I think Kaspa did some things within its own ecosystem that was good, right? They didn't do a pre-mine. They did a fair launch. I would say maybe a little bit less so because there's people on the inside knowing and building up ability to mine it and stuff like that. I mean, again, that's for debate, and I'm sure the Kaspa people will hate that I just said that. And again,
I missed what he kind of said there.
Some things within its own ecosystem that was good, right? They didn't do a pre-mine. They did a fair launch. I would say maybe a little bit less so because there's people on the inside knowing and building up ability to mine it and stuff like that. I mean, again.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, yeah. He even says that Kaspa people are gonna hate him for saying that, and I don't hate you for saying that, but come on, just do a little bit more due diligence before you throw that out there. The fair launch of Kaspa, it's fairer than Bitcoin. That's just a fact. There was more people around when Kaspa launched than when Bitcoin launched, and not only that, when Bitcoin launched, most people, didn't really care about crypto or anything like that. So there wasn't a huge GPU community like there is now. So once Kaspa became GPU mineable, thousands of people started getting exposed to Kaspa. So, and it became GPU mineable within like a month of it launching. So we're talking about thousands of people being exposed to Kaspa. So if you miss Kaspa in that early time, it's just on you, man. It's a fair launch. Like there's no pre-mine. No Kaspa was released before anyone had the ability to get it, which is the same exact thing as Bitcoin. No difference there.
And that's for debate, and I'm sure the Kaspa people will hate that I just said that. And, again, who do you believe? What do you know, right? So,
to be fair, Satoshi mined 1 million Bitcoin. Yeah. And how do we know that he didn't mine to other addresses that we don't know are his? We don't. You really can't prove that. Like, we can't prove it. We just know that a lot of that early Bitcoin isn't moving. But what if it does move? I don't know. To me, I just think it's an extra risk for Bitcoin. Because what if it does move? If it moves, I mean, there's people, I see it all the time on X. Bitcoiners are like, if Satoshi was to move his Bitcoin, will that make you lose faith in Bitcoin? And they're like arguing like, no, it won't. Like, it doesn't matter. It's freedom money. He can do what he wants with the Bitcoin. Oh, okay then. So then why are you shouldn't be upset then that people in the early days of Kaspa have a lot of Kaspa and they got it fairly, Because that's the whole point. The point is, how were you able to get the coin? Only by mining or by trading it with someone else? Okay, it's a fair launch. There's no such thing as like true fairness though. Like anyone who's born today is not going to be able to get Kaspa right now. That's not fair. And it's the same thing for Bitcoin. So fair is fair can be very subjective. But when we talk about fair launch, we talk about the point that anyone that was able to acquire Kaspa could only get it through mining or trading. That's it. No free lunch.
I do think that they did a lot of things right as far as launching a cryptocurrency network. Where I think that they've gone wrong is the way that the individuals and the people within this community.
He's saying Bitcoin can become 10 blocks per second too. I mean, the way he described it was that a layer 2 could adopt the Kaspa technology, but if he thinks Bitcoin can become 10 blocks per second, by all means, convince Bitcoin Core to do that change, which good luck trying to do that. I mean, like trying to change Bitcoin right now is like to scale it. Nope. Not only that, you can't just do that overnight. Like you would need to test that first and you would need to do a test net. You would need to also do the hard fork on a test net if you want things to go properly. You can't just like copy paste code, submit it, and hope people adopt it. Like not only that, you need to convince all the pools to update to this new version. It's not that simple. Not that simple. And Bitcoin has never had consensus to do actual scaling changes since its inception pretty much. So very, very unlikely to happen. Like you say here, which will never happen. It's too risky to make such big changes. Only in theory it's possible. Yeah. It's too risky. Well, really what it is, it's risky to make big changes because Bitcoin has already built its brand that it doesn't change. And that is a flaw to do that. Because now everyone has this mentality of no changing. Any changing is bad. Kaspa's taking the right approach and saying change is good as long as we have consensus. Let's educate users so that they are aware of what's happening, and changes that happen are necessary changes.
Have decided to market it. There is no need for a silver to gold. It is not necessarily competing with Bitcoin, in my opinion. If you're going to change the code rapidly, you're competing with SUI and ETH and all this.
Code is not being changed rapidly though. Like it got changed one time, and there's going to be probably one more hard fork, maybe a year from now. And it's important that we do these changes in the early stages of Kaspa to like finalize it. Because I mean, if you watch the 7.5-hour podcast with Jonathan and that other guy, Vlad, Jonathan even said himself. Jonathan said himself that he wishes that he stayed anonymous, but he knew that if he did, it just wouldn't be good for the project if he was anonymous. Second of all, he said that he hopes to one day be able to just like move away from Kaspa and just decentralize the project more, kind of just no longer talk about it, move on to other things, whatever, and let Kaspa be its own thing, you know, because that's what you need to do. I mean, so Bitcoiners had Satoshi for a few years. Yes, he was anonymous, but they still had him making proposals, doing updates, and then eventually he moved away. One thing I like about Jonathan too is he's the founder. He doesn't code. He's not a developer. He does not code any of the Kaspa code, any of the Kaspa technology. He just builds research papers and like studies on the math and all that kind of stuff of how to make this more programmable, but he doesn't do any of the actual coding. So that's like a good thing in my opinion. And then but yeah, his goal is to like move away and just make Kaspa be its own thing. And he believes that Dagnite, once Dagnite comes out, that's kind of like bringing Kaspa to its final form. Because honestly, it's like, how do you go faster than internet speeds? If your network can go internet speeds, what do you need to update? What do you need to upgrade? What do you need to change to make better? There's not really much to like make better over here. Like the Kaspa is becoming the standard for how proof of work should function nowadays. And so if you're going to propose a change, you know, Kaspa's not going to reject it unless it's just not needed. But if it's a needed change, you can just propose it to Kaspa, and the community will come to consensus. We'll look at it and see if it's necessary or not.
This other thing with a bully pulpit and, you know, developers that are very influential and all of this, right? So, you know, stay in your lane basically is what I'm saying there. Sort of why I'm talking about this point right now and what my biggest problem with that is because they did certain things right and they've really aligned themselves with Bitcoin. This feels like a piggybacking scam or an affinity scam where you do proof of work. You say, we're proof of work, we're fair launch, we've solved the trilemma, we're better than Bitcoin, right? Those things, that's a lot to say. And I think Bitcoiners, maybe Bitcoiners that haven't thought about the ability to change the code as a point of centralization. Maybe they've just...
That's not a point of centralization. Every single proof of work network has the ability to change the code. Bitcoin Core is literally doing that right now, and you guys don't like it. And there's literally videos of Matthew Cratter literally talking about how he thinks Bitcoin Core is compromised and it's becoming centralized, and they have like a centralized development going on there. But ironically, he makes the argument with Kaspa and he tries to say, yeah, their development is centralized over there, so Kaspa's a problem. And then he goes ahead and start making videos talking about Bitcoin and how its development is centralized. Every single development of any proof of work network is a centralized development. No one can just go in and make changes. Like I recently proposed a pull request for the Kaspa code to fix something that I saw that was a typo and I fixed it. I made the request, and only the people who have the authority to add it to the code can enable it. And this is the same thing with Bitcoin Core. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. There's no difference. And this is why like the whole thing about, oh, Bitcoin doesn't have a founder, you know, there's Satoshi's not here anymore, that makes it immaculate conception. It really doesn't matter when you just look at the technicals and like just logically, Bitcoin and Kaspa are being developed in the same exact way. There's a group of developers who are able to make changes to Bitcoin and propose the changes and update it, and people choose whether or not they want to update or not. It's there's no difference.
just assumed that the pruning works without actually fully understanding it. I think Bitcoiners get tricked by something like Kaspa. And I think that is
we're tricking Bitcoiners now. We're tricking people now. That's what we're doing now. We're just tricking people. No, like, I mean, like, I don't know. I think he's just grasping for straws right now, but we're not tricking anybody here. Just use it. Just use Kaspa yourself. Test it yourself. If you don't like it, don't use it. The end. It's not that deep.
is one of my biggest contentions with it. Not to say, again, not to buy Kaspa as an investment, but again, I just don't think it's valuable.
And he even told his viewers, this is not saying not to buy Kaspa as an investment. He's okay with buying Kaspa. He's literally okay with people buying Kaspa. He just wants you to make sure that you don't think that Kaspa is going to do any kind of like replacement of Bitcoin or outperform it. He wants you to think that Kaspa is not going to have anything to do with Bitcoin. Just look at it as like an Apple stock. That's how you should look at it. But no. Kaspa's money. Kaspa's decentralized money. It's a savings tool. You could be used as digital cash. It could be used to text people. It could be used as a social media platform. It's programmable money. That's what it is. So, I mean, like, they're going to try to change the narrative of what it is, but it doesn't negate what it really is.
To compare it to Bitcoin at its current stage. And I think that because of the network effect, it likely will never be valuable to compare it to Bitcoin. It will be its own thing, completely separate. And that's fine. It can just exist. It can do its own thing. People can hold it. People can trade it. People can use it as their savings, and maybe it'll grow in value and priced in dollars or maybe even Bitcoin at certain points. But it just is a different thing because of all the points that I've talked about. And I think that...
He's right. It's different. It is different. That's why I don't agree that Kaspa... Yeah, you're right. Kaspa's not the next Bitcoin. It's its own thing. And it's doing things that Bitcoin just simply cannot do. So yeah, it's unique. And this is the thing, like any Bitcoiner that logically looks at this, they know that there's nothing really you can say against it. Like Kaspa exists, it's there, and it works, and it does amazing things that we thought proof of work could never do. But all they want you to do is just say, hey, but don't think Kaspa is gonna be a threat to Bitcoin. Don't think that. So right now it's just a narrative game. That's really what it is. But deep down in their brains, they know this thing is good. It's solid. It's sound. It's not garbage.
A lot of times, the marketing around it, and I'm not saying that this is some paid marketing thing or anything like that, but I'm just saying there's natural incentives of the people that do end up marketing it, that they compare it to Bitcoin and they say it's better than Bitcoin. It's better.
Well, we compare it to Bitcoin because there's no other proof of work networks that are like, there's only like a handful of proof of work networks. It makes no sense to compare Kaspa to Ethereum, because they're different consensus mechanisms. There's nothing really to like relate it to. So the best way to make people understand Kaspa is to relate it to Bitcoin. But yeah, they're not really comparable because Kaspa's on, it's like you said, it's in its own game. It's doing its own thing. So we just compare it to Bitcoin because it's the best thing to relate it to, so that people who understand Bitcoin realize, oh, Kaspa is proof of work. It has nodes that are decentralized. Okay, all those same little, basic fundamentals of a proof of work system are there, but then Kaspa goes above and beyond what people thought proof of work can achieve. So the comparison happens. It's just naturally always going to happen because they're both proof of work systems. So we really can't get away from that.
Better Bitcoin and blah, 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 blah. And I think that's possible.
But I do want to say we should try to shift our focus to talking to people in the Ethereum world, the XRP world, even though I know that that's very difficult for people to understand. XRP is just like, why are you in that? But we do need to branch out, because Kaspa is becoming programmable to the point where it's actually offering the same things that Ethereum, Solana offer people, but it's on a much more better decentralized system, that actually benefits the user much more. They just don't realize it yet, and just the masses just need to be educated about it.
Possibly disingenuous. Personally, I think it's incorrect, but I also think that it can trick people, and I think that a lot of these people are getting tricked by Kaspa and the community around it. And I think that
tricked to what? I trick someone to use their money faster and be self-sovereign at all times. I tricked you to do that. What? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm tricking, like, I want to move my money fast. I want to be able to use it as digital cash, and I want to stay self-sovereign and decentralized. Kaspa lets me do that. That's why I use Kaspa. I mean, it's not. I don't know. I don't know, man. Let me see the comments real quick here. Point of view: Kaspa community understands Bitcoin better than Bitcoiners. A lot of people say that. What about let's see here. Jonathan proved solving the trilemma was less effort than trying to convince Bitcoiners. Well, Jonathan predicted the future perfectly when he talked about Kaspa's nodes pruning. He literally said in his article, he said, Bitcoin prunes as well, but be sure to not let a Bitcoiner know about that, because that's going to ruin your day, not to mention your whole week. And literally, the Bitcoin community, their biggest argument is about the pruning. That's like the biggest thing they attack. And like Jonathan literally predicted that Bitcoiners will be getting upset about this pruning thing that Kaspa has, which is crazy. He just knew that's what would happen, and it is happening. That's what we're seeing. People associate slow with safety and speed with danger. Elevators used to be illegal because people were scared. He doesn't need to code, he does the math. Yep. The rapid code changes. The only code that is changed is code that nodes agree upon. Only controversial change is bad. Bitcoiners don't understand this. Yes. The only code that changes is the code that everyone agreed to. Because you can change a code. I can fork Kaspa right now and tell you guys to go run it. Let's start mining on my Kaspa fork. Doesn't mean nothing. Like it's not like forced. You're not forced to update. Tricked. I don't even know how to Ezio dev. I think that's how you say it, right? Ezio. That's how I say it. Ezio tricked me into downloading some Casio app. We all fear in our gut that Kaspa is revolutionary. It will be probably much bigger than any of us can imagine. You're being tricked for doing real research.
You should really reevaluate
Let's wrap this up.
How much money you put into this thing. That's basically all I have to say about this. I brought a lot of airtime.
That was
how much money
good advice.
The community around. I think that a lot of these people
let's hear that again.
Are getting tricked by Kaspa and the community
really
around
good
it.
advice.
And I think that you should really reevaluate how much money you put into this thing.
Correct. You should. You should reevaluate how much money you put into this thing, because everyone's in different financial positions, and you should not be doing things that are making you financially disadvantaged. You know, what I do on here is my opinions and what I want to do with my money, my risk tolerance. But you need to find your own risk tolerance. You need to do your own research. You know, my goal here is to help the research become a little bit easier so that the information's out there. But you should come to your own conclusions and your own risk tolerance. And you shouldn't be copying somebody what they say. You shouldn't be buying Bitcoin because Michael Saylor says it's going to go to $100 million. If that's why you're buying Bitcoin, good luck. Not smart.
That's basically all I have to say about this. I brought a lot of airtime to this thing. I did have another video about XRP. My channel is called Bitcoin Not Crypto, so I have no problem talking about cryptocurrencies and kind of discussing them.
Just a fun fact. I did say in the beginning that I did talk to this guy. He told me he had Kaspa. This was like a while ago. We actually had scheduled to do an interview together, and for some strange reason, I miscalculated the day that I was supposed to be on, and I didn't realize it was the day that I was supposed to do it with him, and we weren't able to do the interview. But the interview was going to be about Bitcoin and Kaspa. We were just gonna talk Bitcoin and Kaspa, and I wasn't able to do it, and we never got to reschedule. And then unfortunately, he got a little bit more popular, and it looks like he took the route of just making sure he sticks with literally only Bitcoin. But if I would have done that interview, he would have had an interview with me in the past about Kaspa and Bitcoin, but we just weren't able to do that. So
In some of their
something, just a little fun fact there. But let's take a look at the comments. 514 comments. Wow. And 261 likes, 141 dislikes. Having Bitcoiners talking about Kaspa is a win for Kaspa. Yep. Having been a Bitcoin maxi for 11 years, I can firmly say Kaspa is the first cryptocurrency, I like that, in quotation marks, that's important, outside of Bitcoin that has caught my eye. It's truly incredible. Nope. It's trash. Satoshi, I'm moving on to other things. Think about that. Yes, Kaspa is not the next Bitcoin. Kaspa is better than Bitcoin. Yes, on paper it is. That's just a fact. Liberated Potato. It would take 22 years to onboard the entire global population onto Bitcoin. It would only take 40 days to onboard their entire global population onto Kaspa. I don't know how you came up with that, but I like it. 1 million transaction a day on Bitcoin, 200 million transactions a day possible on Kaspa. It's just math. It's just math. People have to actually educate themselves about Kaspa. I've never came across a coin as complete as Kaspa. This is the thing. The people here that have to actually educate themselves are the people who are already in crypto. There are people who are already in crypto. Yeah, you probably need to educate yourself to actually really understand what's being built here. But the masses, which is like 94% of the world that has no idea, if you give them two wallets, one is a Bitcoin transaction, one is a Kaspa transaction, and you just say, hey, you need to choose between these two. What is a no coiner going to adopt? The one that clicks send and it takes 10 minutes, or the one that clicks send and it appears practically at internet speeds? What is the no coiner going to adopt? The person that literally has never been in crypto. Which, what I love about Kaspa is that it attracts people who have never been in crypto. I have a lot of people who tell me, I've never been in crypto, but Kaspa is my first coin. I'm like, man, coming to crypto and Kaspa being your first coin is like, that's a blessing for you, because a lot of us in the crypto world have been here for years, and a lot of us learn the hard way about a lot of stuff. Whereas if you come to Kaspa, you're at least going to learn a lot of valuable information about cryptocurrency here. All right. That was fun. Next is Bitcoin University's video, which isn't that long. It's like 5 minutes, I think. Something like that. Let's take a look at it. But let me see here. This is Matthew Cratter. Bitcoin University inspired my YouTube channel. I made my channel inspired off of him. because I used to watch him. Well, I still watch him. I watch him a lot. I subscribe to him. Obviously not on this channel. On my personal channel, I subscribe to him. I watch almost all his videos. Because he has some valuable information, but there's just some things that he's just very close-minded to, and that's fine. He's entitled to his own opinion, but it's unfortunate his position that he takes against Kaspa is very, very unhonest. It's kind of disingenuous of him, because I know he understands these things a lot more deeply, and it just seems like he needs to just find anything to try to like bring Kaspa down. But hey, you're giving us attention. I mean, you don't realize that you are building Kaspa's network effects when you talk about it. So, yeah. And I'll give you a like. I'll give you a like on my channel because, I don't know. I never really dislike videos. Like, it's just like, I give a like. The person gave his time. He gave his opinion. I may not really like what he said. But, hey. It's an opinion out there. And people should be able to say what they want, and Kaspa people should be able to take it at face value and see if anything he says is actually worth listening to. Before we get into it, though, the fees on Bitcoin aren't that high. 22 cents for a transaction for a long time, but you could still argue it's too much for many people. Bitcoin are millionaires. Kaspa is the poor man's crypto. Yeah, and I don't have a problem saying Kaspa is the poor man's crypto, because most of the world is actually poor. Most of the world actually doesn't make a lot of money, and Kaspa allows them to be able to save in a technology that won't take their money, their value, when they're trying to just simply self-custody it. And the reason why Bitcoin is cheap right now is because it's not being used that much. I use Kaspa for stuff I want and fiat for things I need. Yeah, like I'm about to use Kaspa here shortly because I pay for a Discord Nitro subscription, and I'm gonna be using Kaspa to buy that. So I want more conspiracy theories on Jonathan. Yeah, they're just conspiracy theories. I don't really fall into that. Saying Kaspa is a poor man's network because it's fast is like saying a Ferrari is a poor man's car because it's fast. I guess, yeah, but I think it just comes because like I run into post. Someone made a post and was just like, wow, you're complaining about being able to move $100,000 on an extremely secure network for a $10 fee. And I'm like, I responded to the Bitcoiner. I was like, why are you assuming that everyone is fiat privileged? Not everyone has $100,000 and $10 extra so that they can move it around. That's just like, he's assuming that everyone is just fiat privileged. And we have to remember that these things are global. And if we want the globe, a lot of the people in the globe to adopt it, it should be attractive to all wealth classes. But it seems like Bitcoin, the way it's going, is like it's mainly going to be attractive to only the wealthy class. And if you don't have a lot of money, well, if you don't have a lot of money, then you're stuck with using layer 2s or staying on an exchange, because it doesn't make sense to use the base layer yet at all since you don't have a lot of money. Paying high amounts in fees is just going back to what the financial system is here today: taxes and greed. Yeah, the idea is that Kaspa can have so much usage that it keeps the fees can still remain pretty cheap for everybody, but since it's being used so much, you're having millions of people pay a penny, then for their transaction is a lot better than only being able to allow 1 million people pay a penny for their transaction. All right. So yeah, before we start this, I want to take a break real quick, get some water, stand up because I've been sitting here for too long. Um, and then I'll be back in like 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, we're back for this 5 minute and 27 minute video. It's funny that it's just 5 minutes. Like I feel like he was like, I need to make a video. Let's just dunk on Kaspa today, cause why not? All right.
You Craters Bitcoin University. Today I want to answer the question, can Kaspa beat Fartcoin? It's actually a pretty tough question to answer. While some people believe that Kaspa has solved the blockchain trilemma, other people believe that Fartcoin may have solved the problem of global methane remediation by putting it on the blockchain. There's some other similarities. Fartcoin is a stupid coin that only idiots take seriously, but Kaspa is also a stupid coin that only idiots take seriously.
I think I need to sell my Kaspa. We're idiots. I can't believe this is the kind of arguments that we're coming up with now. Where is Fartcoin? Is it actually above Kaspa? Where is Fartcoin? Fartcoin. Why am I even saying this coin's name? Like, seriously. This actually exists in this market. I'm blind. Let me just search it up. What? It would be better if like Fartcoin actually had more market cap than Kaspa, but it doesn't even have that. It's actually been dying. I remember when this thing was above Kaspa for like a moment in time. Like at one point it was 2 billion, but now it's only. Bro, I really thought that Fartcoin was higher than Kaspa. It would have made this video so much better for him, but it's not even higher than Kaspa in market cap. So like, can Kaspa beat Fartcoin? Probably. It's already doing pretty well against it. Oh my goodness, man. This thing's on Coinbase already. 1 billion Fartcoin. This is ridiculous, man. Yeah. The compare. It's not even a comparison. It's really just, just a crash out on his part. Like, just living rent free.
There are differences as well. The name Fartcoin, for example, makes people laugh, while the name Kaspa makes people wonder if it's some new drug from Pfizer. I can hear the ad copy in my head right now. Don't let gonorrhea control your life. Now there's Kaspa for that. Now, fortunately, Kaspa...
This guy got jokes. Kaspa is it's a new drug from Pfizer. All right, so any actual arguments against Kaspa or just jokes?
Kaspa has a marketing team that can set people straight about these things. You'll know these people when you see that they all have a backwards K in their bios, like this backwards K here. This backwards K is actually one of nature's many markers.
We have a Did you hear him? He said we have a marketing team. Dude, since 2023, I've been literally having to explain why Kaspa doesn't have a marketing team, and he says we have one. Why haven't people come to this consensus that we have one? Bro, since 2023, I've literally been having to tell in my comment section, Kaspa is failing because it doesn't have a marketing team. Oh my goodness, man. Like, it's like, dude, it's a decentralized network. The marketing team is you. It's you, you know. This video is marketing. This is marketing for Kaspa. Like, any negative or positive, it's marketing for Kaspa. You don't need a dedicated team. You just talk about it online if you want to. No one's forcing you to.
Markers. For example, if you see a brightly colored snake, you know that the animal is probably poisonous. But if you see a backwards K, you know that the animal is probably retarded. And I'm not trying to
Oh, wait. I should have let him finish.
Be mean here. I'm just interact with any Kaspa person on Twitter and you'll understand what I'm saying. In many cases, the result is just depressing to see. For example, this channel, Kaspa Silver, saying I sold all my cold storage Bitcoin for Kaspa. You really hate to see it. Here we are.
You really hate to see it. That's you have to fix that sentence. I really hate to see it. That's what you hate to see. But I'm retarded because I'm doing what I want to do with my money. I'm retarded because of that. Oh my goodness, what is this sentence?
Are on the brink of global Bitcoin adoption.
We're on the brink of global Bitcoin adoption? This kind of goes back to my last video where I was talking about what is Bitcoin adoption? Is it ETFs? Michael Saylor buying another 100,000? Is it? We're not on the brink of global Bitcoin adoption. We're on the brink of a bunch of custodians holding Bitcoin. That's what we're on the brink of. And that's nothing. That's okay, cool.
And these people are so confused that they're betting on a coin that's not even listed on a major exchange like Binance or Coinbase. So it's very...
That's a bullish problem. That's a bullish problem. There's a reason why it's not listed on Binance or Coinbase. It's because Kaspa was fair launched like it should be, so that it could actually compete with other proof of work networks and be something to actually look at. So it not being on Binance and Coinbase is a bullish problem to me. It just means that, hey, there's no free lunch. Binance doesn't get free Kaspa so that they can list it like they did with Fartcoin probably. Fartcoin probably had some good amount of the supply. Let's actually look at Fartcoin. What are their tokenomics? Is it fair launched or what? Fatcoin. No, that's not what I wanted to put. Fartcoin. No, there's every type of coin out here. This was launched on Solana. Okay. And about Fartcoin. Why is it up today? Does it have allocations? I'm just curious because I want to know, like, because they're already on Coinbase. Now, I know one of the reasons why it's on it's easy to be on Coinbase is because it's a token. It's not a layer 1. So it may have been fair launched. But because it's a token on Solana, it's literally like a flick of the button. Like you just push a button and you can enable it on Coinbase. And of course, why wouldn't Coinbase enable a meme coin? It will make them fees. They don't care that it's worthless. I mean, they literally listed useless coin. Let me see this. Useless coin. Useless coin got listed on Coinbase recently. Let me see. Where is it? Come on. Useless coin. I think I gotta find it on X. Let me see the announcement on X. Useless coin. Coinbase. Here we go. Coinbase will add support for useless coin on the Solana network. Yeah, okay.
Very difficult for people to get into it. There's no liquidity. And this coin has a market cap of just $2.2 billion, which is smaller than even Pepe. Here's Kaspa.
Okay, there you go. That's a better comparison. Yes, it's smaller than Pepe right now, and it's a meme coin. Yeah. I don't know why the market's doing that, but it is what it is.
Kaspa at number 44, and Pepe is somewhere up here at number 31. So we're talking about
But we still got to remember that Pepe is also just a meme coin built on already existing network that is billions of dollars. So it's pretty much like understandable why these meme coins easily can get more capital in them, is because it's such an easy thing for an Ethereum user to just be like, swap and go gamble on some useless coin.
Tiny coin. That K, of course, that reverse K, of course, it looks like a Phoenician letter, it looks like a Hebrew or Aramaic letter, and as this AI overview says, it stands for kasef in Aramaic or Hebrew, meaning silver or money. You'll often hear this from Kaspa's marketers, that Kaspa is silver to Bitcoin's gold. This is something we used to hear.
Yeah, we talked about this in the last video. He's arguing about the whole silver narrative and how, I already explained that in the last portion of this video, so you can kind of just go back if you want to see this part, but we're just gonna let him talk through it. Let me see if I can put the speed.
About Litecoin as well, silver to Bitcoin's gold. It's one of the oldest marketing tricks in the book. Now, there is some truth to this.
It's not a marketing trick.
On the gold standard or the bimetallic standard, silver, the precious metal, was often used for smaller denominations. Since gold is quite dense and difficult to subdivide, it's a really small piece of gold that you need to buy a cup of coffee, for example. So people often use silver or silver coins instead. But what crypto scammers don't want you to notice is that here we're dealing with, obviously, digital.
Now I'm a crypto scammer. I'm an idiot, I'm retarded, and now I'm a crypto scammer. Wow.
Money, where it's easy to subdivide by just using a decimal point. Since it's software, it's not physical.
If Kaspa was so bad, I don't understand why you need to talk about it. Like, if it was just blatant obvious that a person should just reject this thing, you don't need to talk about it. I mean, he doesn't talk about why you shouldn't get into Pepe or why you shouldn't get into Fartcoin. You just don't talk about it because it's obvious. But with Kaspa, you got to talk about it. You got to try to convince people to not get into it. And how do you do that? You just call them stupid. That's basically what it seems like the best argument is nowadays.
Metals. For example, Bitcoin is subdivided into 100 million Satoshis or sats. So whenever you hear someone say that their crypto is silver to Bitcoin's gold, you know that you're dealing with one of the oldest marketing tricks in the crypto book, and you'll also know to run in the opposite direction as quickly as possible. That's because this is what always happens to anything that tries to be quote unquote silver to Bitcoin's gold, as Litecoin attempted to be. This is a chart of Litecoin versus Bitcoin. As the chart moves down, that's Litecoin weakening against Bitcoin. And we can see that as silver to Bitcoin's gold is actually much worse than real physical silver to real physical gold. This is completely collapsed because the world really only does need one proof of work coin. While Bitcoin grew slowly, organically under the radar over many years and had a founder that disappeared from the project, Kaspa has everything that you would expect from a centralized project. It has
Oh my goodness, the centralized argument. I already have a video where I covered that. Where is that? Right here. Does Kaspa having a roadmap make it centralized? I once again reviewed one of his videos that he tried to claim that Kaspa is centralized because it has a roadmap. Just watch that video. Like it's not really a strong argument at all. And a living active founder. We already discussed how the founder doesn't even code. He doesn't code. In fact, I mean, he barely says anything. I mean, the most we ever saw him say was when he was talking on the podcast recently. And he was just talking in general about Kaspa technology and what it's going to do and what its goals are and what everyone agrees that it should go. Like, okay, now this is weird. Okay.
It's a living active founder, has a PR team, it has a marketing team, it has an exchange team.
It has a PR team, a marketing team, and an exchange team. Where is he getting this from? Assist the marketing team, make videos with the team. Oh, okay. This is the argument that the Kaspa ambassadors on Kaspa.org is some kind of team. Like it's like a like I don't know. Is it bad that Bitcoin has foundations? Those are teams, and those teams are trying to help Bitcoin get adopted. And so the ambassadors of Kaspa, as it says right here, is anyone around the world who has decided to dedicate their time and resources to spread the vision of Kaspa. This is not a paid position. Passionate Caspians volunteer their time. It's as simple as that. Oh, not only that, look, there's a list of Kaspa ambassadors. I'm not even on this list. I'm not here. Why? Because it really doesn't mean anything. I mean, like, the title doesn't really mean much. It's just, I mean, I don't desire to be labeled an ambassador. I don't need this. I just talk about Kaspa because I want to. And if you want to be on this list, you like Kaspa, you want to spread Kaspa awareness, hey, send an email to become a Kaspa ambassador. This is pretty much ran by Chad right here. This guy, I talk to him all the time. Volunteer. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just like a organized effort of, hey, you like Kaspa? Okay, I like Kaspa. Let's work together now and spread Kaspa awareness. I don't understand why this is like illegal to do in a crypto world. Like it's almost as if like I'm complaining if like the Bitcoin foundations are like teams that are being organized to spread Bitcoin awareness, and that's a problem. So yeah, this argument, he pulled this argument from that Fred guy. I think he probably listened to him, and like he's just pulling this argument from another Bitcoiner that has not done their due diligence either. So yeah, not this doesn't hold any water.
Marketing team, exchange team, PR team. These are what are called the Kaspa ambassadors, and they're not paid directly, but it looks like they can be reimbursed, for example, for various expenses. This is
yeah, you get reimbursed because we donate. We donate to the marketing fund that Chad sets up. You know, he puts up a QR code, and he asked the community to donate money so that we can do this, and it's all community backed. What's wrong with that? Like, we're just organizing our efforts here because we believe in Kaspa. I don't see how that's a problem.
Very sad group of people to see how misled they are. Neutral, decentralized projects don't have.
They're misled.
PR and marketing teams. But Kaspa has other big problems as well. For example, they front-loaded their mining rewards for the first few years, and now the block reward is running out. The hash rate on the Kaspa network is collapsing as miners go elsewhere. So the hash rate at the beginning of this year was around 1.48 exahashes per second. It's now down to just 660 petahashes per second. This is something that we certainly never saw a collapse like this in Bitcoin.
We never saw a collapse like this in Bitcoin? What? Bitcoin hash rate. Kaspa Silver is the marketing team. I am the CEO of Kaspa as well. I claim it. And it must be me. He says Bitcoin has never had a drop like this. What? What is this? What is this right here? That Bitcoin's never had a drop like this. What is this right here? What is the fact that literally like daily this thing is moving? This thing is moving like 200 hashes. 200. What is that? Right now it's at Z hashes. I think is what is zeta hashes. So like you got peta hashes, then you got exahashes, then you got zeta hashes. So this thing is moving 200 exahashes at a time sometimes. Like it's not comparable. They're different mining algorithms. And so when we look at the hash rate of Kaspa, which we did earlier in this live stream, but when we look at it, it had a surge because it was successful. It was super profitable. And then of course, like anything that is usually, getting the euphoria is getting too high, it corrects. And it went back down to 680 petahashes. But it's still up from being nothing. From literally being nothing. Like practically zero hash rate almost. It's still sitting in the petahashes. So, again, this is just cherry picking. I can cherry pick all day. I can put a chart of Bitcoin. Oh, look. It crashed here. It's dead. It's over. No, it wasn't dead. It wasn't over. So, yeah.
Remember all the Kaspa. This is Bitcoin Isaiah. Remember all the Kaspa clowns telling everyone that Bitcoin has a security crisis. This is the hash rate of their shitcoin, down 55% this year alone.
Just because the hash rate drops doesn't mean it has a security crisis. That wasn't what the Kaspa people were trying to say about Bitcoin. We were trying to make Bitcoiners aware that every single proof of work network has a security budget that needs to be funded outside of just the block reward. That's all we were trying to make people aware. So, yeah. And then this same user recently just made a post actually saying that, this same user that criticized Kaspa about its hash rate here. Let me actually find his post just to kind of show the double standard, because that's just what is so unfortunate, that I just keep seeing like a lot of double standards when it comes to trying to like argue against Kaspa. Is like they say things that Bitcoin basically has itself as well. Let me see if I can find this post. Yep, right here. So the same user made a user trying to, dunk on Kaspa about hash rate falling. And then he makes this post. Fees as a percentage of the block reward just dropped to the lowest level since 2016, a 10-year low. This is for Bitcoin. It's clear that ETFs and Bitcoin treasury companies are having a very negative impact on Bitcoin's fee market. This is exactly what us Kaspa people are trying to warn you about. This is what we're seeing, and this is what we're trying to bring awareness to, because we're not ignorant that a fee market is very crucial for a proof of work network to survive. And then he says, hold your own keys, people, for yourself and the network's sake. I even responded to him here and I said, holding your own keys still doesn't help. Encourage people to use the base layer more. And he says this is false. Those saving in Bitcoin are regularly making on-chain transactions. Millions of people saving on-chain equal consistent fee revenue. There's not even 1 million people doing that. Bitcoin can barely have 1 million transactions go through in a day. You'll be lucky to see it. You see why this doesn't really make sense for the masses. It's more attractive to just use an ETF or just hold on a layer 2. What you instead have happening is millions of people stacking Bitcoin on a layer 2, waiting to hit enough Bitcoin to then just commit one transaction to self-custody it. Why? Because true supporters know that collecting too many UTXOs may deem your Bitcoin unable to be spent in the future if it did get mass adopted. If you want Bitcoin to be used more, it needs to scale. Base layer needs to be more attractive than a layer 2. Saving doesn't give miners any revenue. You have to use it. I didn't say this. I did not say saving doesn't give miners any revenue. I said just saving alone isn't going to help. That's what I said. Actually, it drives fees so high that it makes it usable. Yes, if people were to use Bitcoin in an extreme way, then it would make Bitcoin unusable for most of the world because it can only ever handle about 800,000 transactions in a day. Make up your mind, does it provide fees or not? My original point still stands, and I say the millions won't come. If they do come, they will be driven away, just like in the past. Both can be true. It's a fallacy to think you have to stand on one point. And then he says it comes with education. Users need to understand why fees matter, how the mempool works, and how to properly manage UTXOs. Those that understand these things remain consistent users. I agree it's not for everyone though. And then I say, and this is where Kaspa comes in, making it more suitable for anyone. Less noise distracting them away from embracing layer 1 Kaspa to be used in their daily life. And then instead of continue the convo, it just turned into, we're just a shilling community and the most annoying community since Nano. But the reason why I commented to you here is because you openly want to make claims about Kaspa itself. So when you make a claim about Bitcoin, I'd even talk about Kaspa. I just made a point that, just saving in Bitcoin is not going to help you use the network more.
Security budget is rapidly collapsing. Oh, the irony. I think he gets it quite right. So answering the question, can Kaspa beat Fartcoin? It's definitely a race between two idiots, but it looks to me like one idiot is clearly winning, and that is Fartcoin. We can see here that Kaspa is collapsing relative to Fartcoin. So Kaspa may prove to be more ephemeral than a fart when we get to the end.
Okay, so... okay, this is the double standard. Double standard just happened here. So when I take the Bitcoin chart, the Bitcoin versus Kaspa chart, if I take this chart and say, Bitcoiners, Bitcoin has lost 90%, 99% against Kaspa. If I do this, I'm cherry picking and they say, this is obvious. Anything new is obviously going to outperform Bitcoin in the beginning, but long term it won't. Okay, so if I do this, they don't accept it. But when they want to talk against Kaspa, they want to compare it to Fartcoin and just say, oh, look at Fartcoin's chart. It's currently outperforming Kaspa right now. And this is another problem, is determining something beating something else. We're only determining it based on the fiat price, which is like, isn't fiat the very thing we're like trying to get out of? Like, isn't that the whole idea of like the Bitcoin standard where like we're no longer pricing things in fiat, we're pricing things in Bitcoin? So like, why are we using fiat as our arguments here? Just look at this price, let's look at this chart. It's all based on fiat, the thing that we don't really care about. And if fiat is to continuously go to zero because of inflation and all that kind of stuff, what's going to matter more is not how much it's worth in dollars. It's going to matter who's using it more. That's what's going to matter the most. Not how much it's worth in dollars, longer term. But
end of this. Just do yourself a favor. Don't waste your time with this stuff. Just buy Bitcoin instead. Buy real BTC and hold it in cold storage. You don't need to mess around with retarded coins or ship coins or Bitcoin treasury companies or anything else. It's simple, but apparently not easy for people. Just hodl Bitcoin and then get on with your life. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching.
All right. So that was the video, and I mean, no actual arguments against Kaspa, just that real arguments against it. At least it was just mainly that you're retarded if you hold Kaspa. Let's see what the chat has to say here. Matthew Cratter is a Kaspa ambassador. This is his second video about Kaspa, so it's growing. Ask your doctor if Kaspa is right for you, but don't ask your boomer financial advisor. Pepe is on Ethereum, yep. It's smaller than Pepe because tons of people just gamble their money, and Kaspa's fair launch. Pepe isn't. Exactly. We all know Pepe is not going to be here 10 years from now. You don't have to think hard about that. And again, I can cherry pick all day. This is why I don't like the cherry picking. So the video I made right here.
Welcome back.
I made this on August 14th, 2025. This is when I made this video. I can cherry pick all day. Since I made this video, when was it? I made it on August 14th. Let's see here. August 14th. You get a better visualization if we swap it. We'll do Bitcoin. Bitcoin versus Kaspa. So I made the video. When was it? August 14th. August 14th. It was here. This is where Bitcoin was. The high of Bitcoin on that day was here. Since I made that video, you're down 2.50% in Bitcoin terms. If you listen to me and you just switch to Kaspa, you know, you're doing better off, because when I made the video, it's down since I made that video. So it's down like 2%. But, you know, I could cherry pick all day. Like, we'll see how that plays out in the long run, if that decision was right for me. But I also made it clear that I sold my cold storage Bitcoin because I still have exposure to Bitcoin in an ETF. Because I'm okay with taking those risks and still having exposure to Bitcoin. And so, because, you know, my point here isn't to say like Bitcoin's going to zero tomorrow, guys, Kaspa is going to take it over. That's silly. That's not my point. My point here is I'm doing what I feel is best with my money to manage it and create long-term substantial wealth. And not only that, be able to support a cryptocurrency that has a much stronger chance, in my opinion, to really become an alternative to fiat in our world. That's the main goal here. How many comments so far? He hasn't really got a lot of views. I don't know if it just needs to update. Let me see here. Yeah, he hasn't really gotten a lot of views on this video within 5 hours. Usually 5 hours he should be getting a lot more views, but stay humble and stack farts. Yep. Of course he loved that. With all due respect, I'd really like to hear some strong arguments about why Bitcoin is more valuable compared to what Kaspa offers. Trash talk only goes so far. Your subscribers need knowledge and evidence. And this guy is saying a lot of true things. It's important to keep a culture of re-examining and re-evaluating everything. Otherwise, you end up with a system of blind trust followed with religious devotion and bias, which is the exact opposite of the ethos the Bitcoin community teaches. This right here. Hit it right on the target. I would also want from Matt to explain us decentralization of nodes of Kaspa versus Bitcoin, the auditing of Bitcoin versus Kaspa mining fees. We need that knowledge. That's why we are subscribers to Matt. Hey, this is a subscriber to Matthew Cratter agreeing that he wants more information. He wants better information than what he's giving, because the trash talk only goes so far. You need to learn a few more things about first mover advantage. First mover advantage really doesn't mean much. There's a lot of things. If you learn and research about first mover advantage, you will quickly learn and realize that just because it has first mover advantage does not mean it will stay there forever. Better decentralization, I don't see how has better decentralization. Better tokenomics, no. 1000x bigger community and recognition. Yeah, so this is the argument here is just first, you were first. Well, if that's true, that first mover advantage just means you got it packed, then that means Bitcoin will never surpass gold, because gold's been here for 1,000+ years and it has first mover advantage. So the argument just is not a good argument for Bitcoin. There is a reason why nobody cares about Kaspa. If nobody cared, then why did he make this video? And other coins and their followers that think they are special. Do you know how many coins that are already dead were sure that they are better than Bitcoin? Yeah, it's not even about being in Kaspa because we believe we're better than Bitcoin. A lot of us hold Bitcoin still in different ways. It's that we believe Kaspa actually fulfills an intent. It actually fulfills the intention of Bitcoin when it first launched. The original intention that Bitcoin launched with, we believe Kaspa fully finishes that first intention. I truly admire all the work Matthew does and watch all his videos. Same here. The issue is that the Kaspa community doesn't really speak negatively about Bitcoin. Instead, they focus on why Kaspa is better. This gives them a communication advantage if Bitcoiners respond only with negativity. Yeah. Without providing solid arguments for why Bitcoin remains stronger than Kaspa. Not all of us have deep technical knowledge, so it's important to hear serious arguments that help us support Bitcoin in a constant and evolving world where everyone is always trying to sell the new and better thing. All Matthew does is talk about why Bitcoin is better every day. Every once in a while, he'll still single out a particular coin. That's just for fun. Do you know how many coins are out there? Yeah, but you should be asking yourself why, out of all the coins in the market, he needs to talk about Kaspa. Why? That should be the real question. Kaspa was not fairly distributed. It was all mined within 2 years. Again, that's just a subjective viewpoint. Fair launch is about, because if we compare that to Bitcoin, there was barely anybody around when Bitcoin launched. So what, like 10, maybe hundreds of people were able to get most of the supply in the beginning days? The devs have stated their main goal from Kaspa is to become rich. No, they have not. This guy took a quote from Jonathan in one of his articles that Jonathan made. There's an article he made back before Kaspa existed. He gave 3 reasons why he wants Kaspa. He gave 3 reasons to answer the question, why Kaspa? The first reason he said was to make proof of work great again. The second reason was to become rich. And the third reason was to, I think he said something along the lines of that people just need a proof of work system that actually fits their needs and ask. Humanity just needs a system like this. And so Jonathan said that he wanted to become rich, and then they used that. I think Jonathan was just humor. Hello, like having a joke. Have jokes. We can we can have humor on here. Um, and I think he said he wanted to become rich, but I always say, I'm like, what would you rather him say? I made Kaspa so that everyone can become poor. Like, come on, like seriously, like, is that why you're in Bitcoin? Because you want to become poor? Obviously not. So I mean, like, good for Jonathan. He wanted to make Kaspa so that it could be a means for him to become rich. At least he's honest. I mean, come on now. It's really not that deep. It's also been around only for a couple years. Nothing is going to dethrone Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, we're not here saying it needs to dethrone it. More so if it's centralized, it's not centralized. Congrats for being exit liquidity to devs who mine most of the supply. The devs don't even... The devs mined Kaspa with CPUs. And CPUs only lasted a month. After a month, it was GPU mining. So it became extremely competitive to mine with CPUs. And I'm pretty sure the devs don't mine with ASICs. They rather just work on the Kaspa now. They got a good chunk of the supply. Good for them. They were here. They put in the work. They created Kaspa. They mined it fairly with everyone else who knew about it. Because right now I could just tell him, congrats on being exit liquidity for institutions that are getting Bitcoin now when you buy Bitcoin. Because most of the institutions are holding most of the Bitcoin. Most of the Bitcoin is being held by centralized institutions. The problem with this argument is Kaspa shares the same ethos as Bitcoin. Yep. Imagine the excitement of a Kaspa holder seeing this title and expecting a beautiful echo chamber to listen to on a Saturday morning. Grateful for Crater. What do you say here? Thanks for your support. I'm getting more and more bullish on Fartcoin every day. I'm excited about this video, man. Like, you're just giving more attention to Kaspa. And people who think critically are going to think critically and do their own due diligence and adopt Kaspa or not adopt Kaspa. It's up to the person. Kaspa is building real world use and will be carbon negative by 2035, 9 years from now. Smart contracts are going to kick in soon. It's going to change everything. Most decentralized altcoin. Funny, let's compare Bitcoin to Kaspa. Wow, look at the founder, holds 1.1 million Bitcoins and probably owns more than we don't know of. That's crazy to call Kaspa a pre-mine coin. Also, Kaspa founder did a security audit on Bitcoin in 2013 and corrected the security flaws. Funny how much alliance Kaspa tries with great spirit, yet is met with violent opposition from mediocre minds. We love Bitcoin. You guys make this a competition when in reality we unite together, like you mentioned in the beginning of your video. Silver is used better for daily transactions. Why do you want to be carbon neutral? Isn't carbon dioxide essential for trees and plants? I mean, he just ignores like pretty much everything, just picks one thing. In every cycle, we get new altcoins that are supposed to be better than Bitcoin. Okay, any coin that has said that they're better than Bitcoin and they're not proof of work automatically means that there was not a coin that was actually better than Bitcoin. That a proof of work does not happen every cycle. That is like this groundbreaking. In fact, I don't think it's ever happened. The last 15, 17 years Bitcoin's existed, you have hard forks of Bitcoin. And then if you do have a proof of work network, they're not even fair launched. I think Kaspa is like one of the first few fair launched proof of work networks that actually brought something game changing to the table here. The moment you hear better than BTC, run away. Yeah, and I understand their hesitation. You know, the boy who cried wolf, you know, he lied, but eventually he wasn't lying anymore. So, it's always good to at least keep a little bit of an open mind. Oh, Bitcoin, not crypto. The guy we just talked about. XRP tricks people that know nothing about Bitcoin. Kaspa tricks people that know very little about Bitcoin. What? I love the humor here, Matt. Unfortunately, I know some people have been tricked by Kaspa, and they will continue to suffer until they admit it. Many Caspians are forming Bitcoin maxis, and most of the time Kaspa's lecture Bitcoiners about Bitcoin. Caspians are usually more knowledgeable about Bitcoin. If you hold Kaspa, you don't understand Bitcoin. Bitcoin crypto, I really hope you're not holding any more Kaspa, because you told me you were. I do not understand Bitcoin. I'm in the space since 2015. I just don't take Bitcoin as a religion. Yeah. This is what Kaspa has to fight against. Which is like, if this is what we have to fight against, then Kaspa might become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Let me take a look at the chat. Bitcoin has a living core dev team. What's the difference? Exactly. Bitcoiners don't understand that simple point, that Bitcoin has a living core dev team, and it makes it no different than Kaspa. It's the same thing. What is up with Bitcoin Maxi saying people are tricked or misled? It's all public info that anyone can read and test themselves. Yeah, I mean, it's all voluntary decisions here. It's not like anyone's forcing you to get Kaspa. If you don't want Kaspa, just don't get it. No one's forcing you. At this point, if Kaspa does rally, it would be the most hated rally. Hash rate in Bitcoin never dropped 70%. So he's right about that. It never happened in Bitcoin. I mean, but we've never had a network in Kaspa. We never had a network in the crypto world that managed to literally get ASICs and even convince. We've never had ASIC mining companies like they do today, like Marathon Mining Digital. We've never had that before. So the mining game is so much different than when Bitcoin started. When ASICs came out for Bitcoin, you didn't just have Marathon Mining existing already. Marathon Mining didn't come out to 2017, where they'd announced that they're going to start mining Bitcoin and ASICs and all that kind of. The mining game is so different now. So, like I said, in the hash rate world of Kaspa, I firmly believe it got overextended. Miners they FOMO'd, and they bought too much miners. The hash rate surged to a very unrealistic point, and now it's trying to find a floor to balance it out. Matthew made a very controversial comment in the comments. It's worth searching for. I wish you could sort it by like anything he's talked to. Oh, here we go with the stupid arguments of like, oh, Kaspa is a Israeli coin. Nonsense. It's decentralized, guys. Like it's ridiculous. I'm always happy to make videos associating your scammy coin with farts. How long does it take Kaspa transactions to reach final settlement, the point at which transaction can no longer be reversed? It takes a little bit longer than Bitcoin, but the point is, if you wanted to reverse a transaction, you need to have 51% of the hash rate. And the whole point of proof of work is to be resistant against 51%. So just because Kaspa takes a little bit longer for a transaction to totally not be reversed isn't really an argument, because you still need to get a 51% attack going. And to get a 51% attack is, you can't just do that. It doesn't make sense to do it. The Bitcoin is blockbuster argument. Ambassadors don't exist anymore. Yeah, that's not true to say. They exist. But they're not paid to exist. Anyone can email to be put on that website. Why is the tab still there? Here, I'll respond to him. It's still there because it does exist, and no one is paid to be on there. You right now can request to be put on there if you showed enough enthusiasm with Kaspa. I personally have chosen not to be on there because it really doesn't mean much. Smiley face. Did I spell that right? Spell check. I hope I did. If I didn't, then it is what it is. Don't worry, Kaspa marketing team, there are plenty of tards out there living. Kaspa is definitely money for our idiocratic future. Yeah, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. Yeah, the hash rate of Kaspa. Let's actually see how much it dropped. So 1.59. The high was 1.59. So let's just do yeah, I don't even think, yeah, was it even 70%? I think the lowest it went was 570. So if I divide that, yeah, it probably was like 50%, not 70. The smile face at the end really shows you're friendly. Well, I got a smile. There's nothing to be upset about. Hash rate of Bitcoin did drop 65% in 2021, at least for a short time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Bitcoin did have a huge drop. I think, can we actually pull the hash rate on here? Bitcoin hash rate. This was 2021. It dropped 68%. It dropped about 50%. I mean, randomly here it dropped 50% here for like a day. I mean, hash rate is pretty common. It's pretty commonly volatile. It's a very volatile thing all the time. It's not something that kind of just look. Even this right here, even this little time period over here, back in when was this? This was 2011. There was another 57% drop here. Peak here, 45% drop. I mean, I'm cherry picking now. It's ridiculous. Like, why a hash rate drop is not an argument for Kaspa. But yeah, that was a fun stream. We've been here for about 2 hours and 47 minutes. It's been a fun stream, but I'm getting tired. But this was great. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching this. If you did watch all of this, just a little bit of advertisements here at the end. If you're interested in doing a video call with me, you want to do some one-on-one conversations and kind of pick my brain, ask me questions, you can go to cal.com/Kaspa Silver. And for $25, you can talk with me for half an hour. For $50, you can talk with me for an hour. I'm also not very strict on those times. So, if you pay for 30 minutes, I'll go over a little bit depending on how booked my schedule is. If it's booked, then I can't. But if it's not booked, I'm not going to be super strict about it. But yeah, you can ask me anything related to Kaspa. If you want help in like running a node, mining, wallets, anything like that, you want to just find out more information and learn more before you jump into anything, you can just book a call with me and talk with me. I'll be happy to assist you. Another thing is my Patreon. Patreon is just a really great way to support my work here and what I do. I don't need to do any of this, but I enjoy to do this as a hobby. But a little bit of support does really incentivize me more to keep going, keep moving forward. So look into the Patreon, $15 a month. The main benefit of the Patreon is that you get to talk to me one-on-one within the Discord. I'm going to prioritize, if you're a Patreon member, I'm going to prioritize any kind of DMs you may do to me. Not only that, you get to see my crypto portfolio. So if you really want to see like exactly how much I hold in Kaspa and also in stocks or whatever, you get to see that. You also get early access to all of my YouTube videos before they go out live to the public. So you get to watch my videos first. That's what happens there. And then last but not least, you can be a part of helping Kaspa grow. So so every month I receive my payment and I take 5% of that and put it into something called the Kaspa Silver Fund. That Kaspa Silver Fund is used to fund initiatives within the Kaspa ecosystem, to motivate other projects that are being built out like Cassia or Casway, these other things that are being built out by volunteers. That's a way that we can help fund them. I take 5% of what you've given me to try to give back to the Kaspa community. So that's what my Patreon does. And then last but not least, if you are interested in getting yourself a wallet for Kaspa, look into Tangem. They do have exclusive Kaspa cards right now for Tangem, about 1,473 left. If you use the code Kaspa Silver at the checkout, you receive 10% off your order. And I also do receive a commission for that. Greatly helps support the channel, and I'll greatly appreciate that support. But this is a great way to store your Kaspa offline, off exchanges. If you have not done that yet, please get your Kaspa offline and off exchanges. So leave a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And as always, don't be average, be different. And thank you for the $10 donation here. Doesn't Bitcoiner arguments, Kaspa-based feeling are the same as those back in the day against Bitcoin? Yeah. A lot of the arguments are just feelings and emotions rather than sound arguments against Kaspa. I would agree with that. But thank you so much, everybody, for your support. I'll see you guys. Bye.